At the crossroads of movies and comics, two mediums meet, and two men will venture down an untrodden path on a trivial, absurdly inane quest to read all of the movies that comics deem worthy of print. A chronicling of comic book adaptations of movies. Welcome to Movies as Comics.
A terrifying evil has been unleashed.
And now your hosts.
5 strangers are our only hope to stop it. Really? Like, what? Who's putting hope in these people to stop it? And is that their quest, is to stop evil?
Quest like a D&D campaign?
That doesn't add up, really. Anyway, cheap drinks, loud music, vampires. This'll be one hell of a night. Get it, hell?
Yeah. Were you getting the taglines from? Were these on the movie posters or on the back of the VHS tape?
You know, that's a good question. I went on IMDb.
Oh,
and just found a list of taglines. I'm sure they came out in various posters and video releases.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
I remember this next one. From I don't know where, but I remember.
Vampires. No interviews. What does that even mean? Vampires. No interviews.
Interview with the vampire. No cruises.
Like they're... Oh, okay.
This was around the same time.
I didn't even think of that, but no, you're correct. That's exactly correct.
So,
no interviews. Okay. Dude, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. Whatever. I'm an idiot. The showdown is on.
No, that line's an idiot.
Dude, that might be the most accurate tagline. One night is all that stands between them and freedom, but it's going to be a hell of a night.
There's that line again.
Hell, it's a scary place, and it's vampires, and right?
Oh my God!
Lots of fire in that bar. I don't know.
The last one on here.
How far can too far go?
What does that have to do with the movie?
Yeah, I guess it can go as far as like fucking 2 sequels in a TV series.
And a TV series.
That's how far it can go.
And a comic adaptation.
And a comic adaptation. Oh my gosh, what? You don't say. That's how far it can go, I guess. No, I don't know what that line means. You know what? I don't know what a lot of these lines mean. They weren't trying too hard. Anyway, welcome to Movies as Comics, everybody. We're discussing and reviewing comic adaptations of movies. My name's Ozzie, and with me through it all is Henry.
Hi. Howdy.
Hi, Henry. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Awesome. Pretty good is good. Well, we're just a couple of mean motor scooters, you know what I mean?
I love that line, too.
Do you know what I mean?
No idea whatsoever.
Oh, dang it, because I was hoping someone did. I don't know what that means at all.
But that's like one of the lines that's used over and over again, whether it was in the movie, the adaptation, the TV series.
The trailers,
Trailers,
that's a very Tarantino-esque line, I'd say. Anyway, as you might have gathered out there by this point, this time around, we're talking about From Dusk Till Dawn.
Everybody be cool. You be cool. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Low profile. You understand the meaning of the words low profile?
Sure. 2 of America's most dangerous criminals have taken hostages.
What is this? It's called a punch. I'm going to ask you one question, and all I want is a yes or no answer. Do you want to live through this?
Yes.
Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
One night is all that stands between them and freedom.
This is my kind of place.
But it's going to be one hell of a night.
We might be in trouble. We got a bunch of fucking vampires out there trying to get in here and suck our fucking blood.
Now, their only chance is to fight back.
Oh, yeah!
Clooney, Quentin Tarantino, Juliette Lewis.
Welcome to slavery.
No thanks. I already have a wife.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
It's non-stop thrills when George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino star as the Gecko brothers, two dangerous outlaws on a wild crime spree. After kidnapping a father, Harvey Keitel, and his two kids, including Juliette Lewis, the Geckos head south to a seedy Mexican bar to hide out in safety. But when they face the bar's truly notorious clientele, they're forced to team up with their hostages in order to make it out alive. From Quentin Tarantino. From Robert Rodriguez. From Dusk Till Dawn.
I like it.
I like that line.
I love it. Yeah.
That brings me in right there. I think that's what brings everybody in, right?
Oh, yeah.
Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, they were hot.
They had me on Quentin Tarantino, though, to be honest. That's probably the only reason I saw this movie. At the time...
Dude, you're right.
Yeah. At the time, I was watching horror movies. This was 96, so what else had come out at the time? I don't know. But,
as far as horror movies?
Yeah, horror movies. Probably a lot of vampire stuff, They had that line about Interview with the Vampire. You've got the John Carpenter vampire movie.
The vampires were kind of hitting a resurgence because of Interview with the Vampire around this time.
Yeah.
I think through most of the 80s they were dropping off pretty hard. I mean, they went too farcical, I think, with vampires in the 80s. Like, you had Fright Night and stuff like that,
Monster Squad,
sure.
Yeah, they were all just kind of riffs on the Universal Dracula.
Yeah, until seriously, Interview with the Vampire came around and sort of reinvented the idea.
Yeah.
And brought back like the romantic aspect of the vampires and the lore and stuff like that. But yeah, Robert Rodriguez, I had no idea who he was when I first saw this movie. I had not watched Desperado, or El Mariachi for that matter.
Oh wow, no, that was a big deal for us down here in South Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. That movie's very Texas oriented.
Oh hey, yeah.
Some of this description though is like doesn't really add up to what happens in the movie, I don't think.
Not that they tried to hide what the major plot twist was either, though.
I don't think they were ever trying to do that in the marketing.
No.
But the bar's truly notorious clientele, I still don't understand that exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Are they facing the bar's patrons, or are they facing the vampires? Or are they one and the same?
Spoilers, it's the vampires. They're all vampires.
They're all vampires. Even the truck driver patrons?
Eventually they are.
I have questions about how all this goes down, actually. Maybe we'll get into it later.
How do you plan a massacre like that
And how frequently does this take place?
Oh, they touch base on that on the TV series.
Okay.
It's a whole thing. You need to watch the show.
But okay, this is sort of like a Star Wars problem.
How so? How so?
Because it always comes back to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, like how if there are unanswered questions in any of the main movies, they refer you to some fucking novel or some comic book.
Yeah.
Or the description of a fucking toy series or something to fill in the blanks. And that pisses me off. I don't want to fucking go read some bullshit novel to figure out, the backstory of some character. Tell me in the movie. If it's important enough to where I'm asking about it from the movie, you need to tell me that shit.
Yeah, but no, if you want additional lore in this From Dusk Till Dawn's world, you're going to get stuck watching the TV series. And if you ask me, it's worth it.
From how you describe it, it doesn't sound like you're stuck. It sounds like you're...
Yeah, it's not a chore.
It's pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, it's not a chore to watch. It's totally enjoyable. Wilmer Valderrama is great. I don't care what anybody else says. It's got...
Well, who doesn't love Fez?
Yeah, Fez. This is evil Fez, though. I'm not going to spoil that because you haven't seen it yet. Probably a lot of our listeners haven't seen it either. I'm just going to tell y'all, folks, give it a shot. Check it out.
Well, I think after they put out 2 straight-to-video sequel movies, then I kind of just tuned out and decided that... I must have decided at one point in my head that, like, nothing on a go forward from this franchise will be any good, based on these last 2 outings.
You know what? That was my thought process throughout the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now that we're in the situation that we're in, where movie theaters aren't playing the blockbusters throughout the year anymore, those are going straight to video. Now it's a completely different environment. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's refreshing to be able to sit back in your home kind of and just watch a dumbass popcorn action movie.
You say
without
that
the popcorn.
Yeah, you say that now, but in '98 or whenever those Texas Blood Money had come out, you didn't watch it.
No,
same with me.
You were going to the theater.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right. I see what you're talking about now. Yeah, like we could be more trusting of something straight to video now in this day and age.
Yeah.
Until you watch Wonder Woman 84,
Jesus
and then all that trust is fucking dashed again.
That running scene where she runs out of the car like nothing.
Gosh, that's just the beginning.
Move your arms. It just looks like you're going really fast if you move your arms.
How have they not been able to fucking perfect that special effect in 40 years of filmmaking? I think it looked better when young Superman in Superman the movie was running along that train. That was 40 years ago.
Smallville did it on TV.
They have not been able to get that right yet, for some reason.
Alright, pussy, come on in, pussy lovers! Here at the Titty Twister, we're slashing pussy in half! Give us an upper on our best selection of pussy! This is a pussy blower!
So, this movie came out in 1996, on January 19th, and it was put out by Miramax. It had a modest budget, I'd say, of $19 million, but it brought in a whole bunch, just on domestic opening, well over 10 mil, just on opening weekend, and overall box office gross was over $59 million. So, naturally it went on to spawn a couple sequels, albeit straight to video, 2 straight to video sequels, Texas Blood Money and The Hangman's Daughter. But also it's got this TV series that they got started on the El Rey Network. I think it premiered at the beginning of when they launched the El Rey Network in 2014. From what I understand, it's pretty good, but I've never seen it.
It is good. It is good.
Yeah,
3 seasons, too.
Yeah, is it still going, or is they wrap it up?
That wrapped up back in 2016.
I'd like to check it out sometime.
You should check it out. It's got some pretty big stars in there. Jake Busey, Robert Patrick, Don Johnson, Wilmer Valderrama.
Does Robert Patrick reprise his role from the Blood Money?
No.
Oh.
No.
That's interesting.
And I kind of I was planning on staying away from spoilers like that, but screw it. I'll just tell you anyway. He's Jacob.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
At least through season 1. I haven't gotten past season 1 yet.
That's fascinating. It's sort of like a retooling of what they've been doing in the movies.
With a lot more lore. Yeah.
That's cool. Anyway, so yeah, it did pretty well, and this movie is kind of like a fan favorite these days, right?
Dude, and I don't want to bring this up, but 1996. That means that this year, this movie turned 25 years old.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Old.
I try not to think about that stuff, and it just makes me feel fucking old.
I didn't want to bring it up, but I did. This movie
now you did, and the damage is done.
It's done, yeah. 25 years old. I caught this on VHS, and now I wish I hadn't said that.
VHS? What's that?
What? You got the fixed tracking? Yeah.
You would think this is a fan favorite, but you look at some of these ratings, on these different websites, like Rotten Tomatoes, it's at a 6 out of 10, which I think is kind of low. And Metacritic is even lower at 48 out of 100. It's below 50%.
It's super low.
What's up with that? But IMDb, which I think is the more accurate representation of what just the general public thinks of a movie, that's a little higher. That's 7.2 out of 10. That feels about right.
Maybe.
It feels about right. Would you rate it higher?
I would rate it higher. I would have rated it higher. Cool. It for me, it probably had changed the way that I saw a vampire movie. Because I didn't catch Interview with the Vampire when it had first come out. I had no interest in seeing a Tom Cruise, fancy shirt movie.
Oh, well, I saw it plenty because I have a mother.
Yes. Yeah.
And mothers love that movie.
Brad Pitt.
Mothers of the early 90s. That's made for them. You know?
Yeah.
For sure. So, I saw that movie. Anyway, it's not bad. It holds up. I think I watched Interview with a Vampire like maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It holds up.
Last time?
It's pretty good.
Last time I probably saw it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Wasn't that
And
long ago.
that last scene where they're fighting their way out of that cathedral and shit, and it's all on fire. Dude, that's good stuff. Anyway. This movie has a runtime of 1 hour and 48 minutes, and the genre they picked out for it, which I think was made up for this movie, is action, crime, horror. I can't think of any other movie that I'd peg with that genre. Yeah, the MPAA was as hard as ever on this movie, and they gave it an R, which, it deserves an R. MPAA says it's because of strong violence and gore, language and nudity. It's got all that stuff, that's correct.
That's the American rating, though. Well, in the States it's R. Well, so there's a rating for every country. The MPAA isn't going to dictate what is appropriate for youths in Mexico, Ireland.
No, that's the Association of America.
So
it's
some
right
of,
there
some
in
of
the
those,
name.
Yeah. So what was this movie rated in other countries?
Well, if you want that list, you could visit IMDb, and they'll let you know all the little things to be aware of.
Yeah. I just noticed something. As I'm looking at this page, we have the listing for the United States, and of course it's rated R, but it has a certificate number next to it. Jesus, do they get that anal about record keeping for rating systems of movies? But I still don't understand why this movie was banned in Ireland. Are a lot of movies banned over there?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, it does say 1996 banned in Ireland here on the certification section of IMDb.
Wow. I just, there's a hyperlink on it, so I just clicked on it. Let's list some of these movies. Well, we have to list some of these movies that are on here that are banned.
In Ireland?
In Ireland.
Poor Irish.
The poor Irish were not able to see A Clockwork Orange. That's number 1.
Wow, because of the rape? Must be because of the rape.
Yeah, it doesn't list why, but... Next, Casablanca is number 4 on here.
Casablanca?
There's some
Must
obvious...
be because of the communism.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Showgirls, that makes sense. I wish that was banned in the United States, too.
That's banned in my house.
Yeah. Cannibal Holocaust. Natural Born Killers is banned.
Cannibal Holocaust is fucking gross, actually.
Yeah.
Fuck that movie.
Yeah, I still bought it on DVD.
Yeah, it's one of those, notorious horror movies. But it really just makes you feel gross and bad. And they murder that turtle and
they had the
a
little
few
muskrat
snakes
thing, whatever. Yeah, I lent it to
it's all real. I don't need that.
I lent it to a friend of mine. The next day he brought it back to me, and he says he's all bummed out. He tells me, my wife told me to get this fucking evil thing out of my house.
It's not fun at all.
It's not fun to watch.
Yeah.
I still bought it.
Anyway,
Midnight Cowboy is also banned.
What? Because of the prostitution?
Maybe. I don't know. Monty Python's The Life of Brian.
What?
Banned.
Because of the religious undertones and overtones, I guess.
The Wild Bunch, Ernest Borgnine, William Holden. You know that movie from the 60s, late 60s? Banned.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that, but sure.
You've never seen The Wild Bunch? There's this whole...
It's a Western, right?
Yeah, it's a Western. There, at the end, there's this whole big death scene where all the characters are in a shootout and they die, and it's very gory. Well,
nice.
for a Western in 1969.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, but banned.
I've never seen that. Well, I mean, yeah, people have some pretty strong feelings about this movie, I guess.
The Irish have strong feelings about movies in general. Jeez.
Apparently. Dang, what a warning.
I can go on and on
live
about
in Ireland. Because I'll have to bring movie contraband with me if I go there, I guess.
Like Casablanca?
Like Showgirls.
Showgirls? Oh my god.
I'll travel out there with it.
I would take From Dusk Till Dawn. Now that we're kind of
and just make
back.
a bunch of bootleg copies.
Yeah, and be like, hey, you guys like Harvey Keitel?
You guys like banned movies. In America, all that does is sell more copies of the movie if you put banned on the cover.
Yeah, that's true. You know where that's not true, though?
It's going to be great, and then you end up watching Cannibal Holocaust.
Gross.
Dang. I'm going to re-ban this shit.
I wonder if there's a comic adaptation of Cannibal Holocaust, because I would rewatch the movie. I would sacrifice that for my listeners here.
Ooh, there might be, yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
Or like something else just super cringy, like I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
Where that girl is just like fucking raped by 4 guys through 3/4 of the movie, and then the last quarter she's just murdering them. She castrates that one guy.
Oh, we talking about the Wes Craven version, or that new one that just came out a couple years ago? With the 6 sequels or whatever it's got now.
No, I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, there was a remake, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think there was something about a remake. I don't think Wes Craven had anything to do with that, did he?
He did. Oh no! I'm thinking.
You're thinking The Hills Have Eyes.
Last House on the Left.
Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
Right.
Anywho, let's go back.
No,
to...
I Spit on Your Grave. It's a girl that goes out to a cabin to like write, like a writer's retreat kind of thing, and secludes herself. And she just ends up being accosted by these locals, and they just fucking rape her. But the rape scenes are just like so upfront.
Oh, really?
And drawn out and long, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I get the idea. Dang.
Oh, Irreversible. Ugh, gross.
I never watched that one, but I sure heard about it.
Well, you know what? You probably have to at some point in your life. If you're going to be a kind of a horror fan, gore fan, what do you call it? Then you kind of have to watch it. And it's streaming someplace, probably in like 4 or 5 of these different platforms that you've got it. I don't know why.
It's good to keep other horror movies in perspective by seeing that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think, in a way.
Yeah, not for children.
Well, you know, if you are cringy about those kinds of things, or, I guess, if you're a parent and you're wondering if your child should be allowed to watch From Dusk Till Dawn, you can go to this fun little catalog of problems that people have made on IMDb, and these are always fun to run through.
Yeah.
You know, and they tell you every little quote-unquote bad thing that's going to happen, just so you're ready, right?
Yeah. I didn't read these in advance, so I'm excited about this part.
There's so many here. It would take you longer to read through all these than it would for you just to sit down and watch the movie and determine for yourself.
Let's read, what, two or 3 from each section?
Go for it, yeah. We'll just kind of pick through these and just like if one sticks out to you. Some of these are like reasonable, and some not so much. Once the people go into the strip club, you see dozens of prolonged close-ups of breasts.
Was that the case? I didn't see prolonged close-ups of breasts.
And dozens of them?
Dozens of them?
Gosh, I mean, maybe a couple flashes here and there.
In
the background.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like Not As Sexual As Other Rodriguez Movies. What the?
That's hilarious. Which almost kind of seems like a pass. Like, oh, this one's not as bad, you know?
It's not as bad as Spy Kids.
Yeah, not as sexual as Spy Kids.
Yeah. And it mentions that it's been rated, the sex and nudity in this movie has been rated moderate.
Well, yeah, okay. Oh, that's what the parents say. You're right. Yeah, moderate. It is kind of moderate, even though you're in a strip club through half the movie. It's more moderate than you might expect.
Violence and gore was severe, though. By that.
Violence and gore is pretty severe. A lot of vampire-related violence. No shit.
No shit.
Oh, man.
Not very disturbing, as it is very unrealistic.
Unrealistic? Wow. I can't show my children that.
I want realistic gore. I want gore porn.
I want real vampires.
Oh my god. Vampire-related violence.
So this is more like a pass comment, actually. A man has his finger and nose broken by one man and gets kicked in the ribs by another man while he's down. No. Child, avert your eyes. A man rapes and kills a hostage in a motel bedroom. Oh, fuck. Okay, well now we're getting serious. Holy shit. Which is like, in the movie, is that a step too far for that character? It's not in the comic book, and we'll get to that.
No.
Like, they removed that from the comic. They thought it was a fucking step too far.
No, and it's different in the series, which goes into a lot more detail of what wasn't shown in the movie.
Really?
I don't know if it was Tarantino's original vision, but I like the way it was handled in the television series. I don't condone rape, but there's more to it.
Most vampires that are killed subsequently burst into flames and melt into a puddle of gore. Ooh. Now, I don't know what that parent is trying to is trying to tell me. Is that that's better than if they were like, dismembered because it's more cartoony, so it makes it easier to watch, or that's so horrific?
Check out this one. This one's detailed. Some use of gun violence at the liquor store where Peter Bottoms, John Hawkes, served a load.
Well, that's just written incorrectly, right
at
there.
the Mexican bar they called the Titty Twister Incorporated. When both Jacob Harvey and Scott Ernst Lew was bitten by vamps and had to be killed off, as when Richie Gecko, Quentin Tarantino, also one use of a punch by Seth Gecko, George Clooney, at dawn at Carlos's nose.
Wow, this parent needs to focus on
grammar,
writing, and
spelling,
language comprehension with their child, instead of worrying about if they're watching too much gore. This sentence is just brutal. But also, Peter Bottoms, that's the character's name? Okay, first I'm learning of this.
Yeah. And this is some these are two guys, folks.
The Titty Twister Incorporated also.
These are two guys that spent hours of their lives watching this movie, doing research on the comic production.
Making notes.
Yeah, making tons of notes. And we didn't know that this character was named Peter Bottoms.
Peter Bottoms. I guess maybe you get that from the credits.
Yeah, maybe.
Or something.
I didn't pay that close attention.
Also, again, Titty Twister Incorporated?
The Titty Twister Incorporated.
What? It's like a franchise or something?
It's incorporated. So if they were to get sued for the vampire violence, I guess it would fall on the corporation instead of the owner.
Their trust pays for it or something?
The trust pays for it.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Next we have profanity.
Use of various racist, ableist, and homophobic slurs throughout.
80 uses of fuck, in anger mostly. Other, more mild obscenities are also present. Somebody sat down and counted how many fucks there were?
If counted, 80. How often do you use fuck in, joy? Like, celebration.
I have no idea, man. I never sat
in anger mostly. When is it in joy?
Somebody went onto that movie, watched it, and counted the amount of times the word fuck was used, then decided to go into IMDb and write this parental guide that I never knew existed until today.
Also, he's trying to tell me that the word fuck is less obscene than other curse words.
Yeah.
Fuck you, guy. You don't tell me.
Fuck you.
What words are more mild than others? Kind of bullshit is that? But people don't seem to be too bummed out about the profanities here.
Nah. Neither are they bothered by the use of alcohol, drugs, and smoking, because that's been
not at all
moderate.
A fair amount. Like, that's reasonable. That's what we all do.
A fair amount of drinking, but not much else.
It's the amount in my house.
Frightening and intense,
but not much else. So it's like no junkie vampires shooting up. Are vampires not kind of junkies anyway?
Yeah, I mean,
blood junkies.
Frightening and intense scenes. Other parts of the movies could also be intense, perhaps, but the overall movie is more crime thriller than horror, and it's actually one of Tarantino's softer stories.
Softer stories. This is hard to decipher, this one. Other parts could also be intense. Perhaps.
I don't get it. I don't buy it.
Other parts, besides what?
What is wrong with this person?
Overall movie is more crime thriller. Is he correct in that statement?
I don't know. That's
Would you say?
Interesting. Listeners, what do you think?
Yeah, I would love to hear that. If anyone wants to, let us know if they think this is more crime thriller than horror. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of on the fence. I'm kind of on the fence about my
whether it was
opinion.
more crime thriller than horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the crime thriller, as soon as the horror kicks in halfway through, the crime thriller stops dead in its tracks.
Oh, yeah.
And dies.
They never pick that up again.
Also, in the first half, there's nothing horrific. I mean, other than, like, what humans do to each other, like the rape and murder and stuff, which is far more horrific in my mind than any fucking monster vampires.
Which you're getting through, regular news programs on TV.
Yeah, we're what's the word I'm looking for? We're like numbed to that kind of real violence.
Real violence, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Frightening and intense scenes. The looks of the vampires, including a band in the bar where they are playing humans as instruments, would frighten some viewers, including children. So I think what I'm gleaning from this is that I should not let my children watch this movie.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right, fine.
Maybe.
Kids, turn the movie off.
Once they get into the horror section, tell them to turn it off.
Yeah, after they saw the rape and the murder and that fucking sheriff getting shot through the fucking face. Anyway. So I think that does it for that. Now we know what to expect here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're mostly right. It does have most of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue the fact that there's drinking, and if you want to avoid scenes of excessive drinking, topless dancing, gore, then this probably isn't the flick for you. Or the comic.
Sometimes drinking, topless dancing, and gore all at once.
Yeah.
And topless dancing and drinking and foot fetishes.
Oh, yeah. There it is. I was wondering how we were going to bring the foot fetish into it. We did it. We did it.
All you have to do is just mention Quentin Tarantino's name, and it evokes the feeling of. It evokes foot fetishness.
If foot fetish was a person,
it's a word now that I just
Tarantino's
made it up.
Face. Foot fetishness.
Foot fetishizing.
Shizing.
Whatever.
Fetishizing.
We got a bunch of fucking vampires out there trying to get in here and suck our fucking blood. And that's it. Plain and simple. And I don't want to hear anything about I don't believe in vampires. Because I don't fucking believe in vampires. But I believe in my own two eyes. And what I saw is fucking vampires. Now, do we all agree that what we are dealing with is vampires?
From Dusk Till Dawn was directed by Robert Rodriguez. You might know his other works like El Mariachi and Desperado. And he also did The Faculty, Sin City, Planet Terror, Machete, and Spy Kids movies. At that. Which is man, Spy Kids movies, that doesn't seem like it'd come from this guy, right?
No, the Spy Kids movies had come out, pretty close to when Desperado had been popular towards the end of that lean. So it was kind of a shock too. His other stuff was The Faculty and
I always forget about The Faculty. I forget that movie exists, even.
Oh no, it was good.
Yeah, it was a good one. I'll have to revisit it.
Yeah.
Well, this movie was written by Quentin Tarantino. As you can tell, just listen to that dialogue. It's so Tarantino-y.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's got his hand all over that.
Tarantino is also known for such works as a segment in 4 Rooms, a few episodes of CSI, and an episode of ER.
That's where I recognize that name from.
Yeah, I thought you would.
Right, CSI.
Yeah, he's famous.
Mm-hmm.
No, but for real, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just to name a few. I mean...
Yeah.
And that's not even to mention the movies that he's scripted that are great, like True Romance.
Natural Born Killers.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, for this story, though, he had help by Robert Kurtzman. He's credited as help by. Because he came up with this story, Robert Kurtzman did. Him and a writing partner of his, John Esposito, who I don't know what else he's really credited for, not too much to mention. But Kurtzman and John Esposito sat down and came up with this story outline. And what they wanted to do, because Robert Kurtzman was starting a new special effects company, K&B Effects Group, with his buddies Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger. And really what they wanted to do was create a movie to showcase their special effects talents. And so, they kind of wrote the outline and then went to Tarantino and paid him to write a script. This was Tarantino's first paid script before True Romance and all that jazz. And he got $1,500 to write this movie. Wow. I know, right?
Yeah.
But not just that. He also traded for a favor.
What kind of favor?
A special effects favor.
Oh.
I know, that's important. But when you're trying to get Reservoir Dogs made, and you need someone to do a real cool, gruesome ear-cutting scene, you want to have a favor,
Yeah.
in your pocket from K&B Effects Group.
It's all about who you know.
Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a straight-up trade.
You know what? And that explains why the effects in From Dusk Till Dawn are so good, because they were really showing off.
They were really showing off. They were trying to do everything they could.
Yeah,
they were pulling out all of their tricks. And, that's a solid trade for Tarantino, because that ear-cutting scene is very memorable.
Oh, yeah.
Is it the most memorable takeaway from that movie?
It might be one of the most memorable takeaways from any Tarantino movie.
Unbelievable. That's in-fucking-valuable.
Yeah.
So that's pretty radical. Anyway, the movie was produced by Lawrence Bender, who has been Tarantino's producing partner since, fucking go, right? Mm-hmm. Since, day one. Mm-hmm. They're besties. Mm-hmm. They started Band Apart together, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, I could be wrong about that, actually. I'm pretty sure they did. Him and Rodriguez and Tarantino. Anyway. And this movie, From Dusk Till Dawn, was shot by a cinematographer called Guillermo Navarro, who has a pretty interesting career. He came up with Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, really? So, from Mexico.
I assume he got hired because they both share the same first name?
Yeah.
No?
I don't know.
Your name's Guillermo, my name's Guillermo. Come shoot my movie. But he's been working with
You know anything
Del
about
Toro.
camera angles?
He's been working with Del Toro from Kronos on.
Wow.
This guy. And he's done a bunch of other stuff that I don't have listed here, but he hasn't worked with Rodriguez again. He shot Jackie Brown for Tarantino also.
And another, the angles that they chose for that movie were amazing.
Jackie Brown?
Jackie Brown, yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and the film grain that they were able to incorporate into that look, and the sort of washed out colors.
Yeah.
I love the look of that movie. That movie grows on me every time I watch it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It used to be my least favorite Tarantino movie.
What's the least favorite now?
I don't know.
Kill Bill Volume 1.
No, that movie's great.
Yeah, there was a lot of choices that he made that could have done without. I know a lot of it might have been avoiding any kind of lower rating or a worse rating than R, but that. Well, you mean the black and white? The black and white choice,
ninja scene.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't think that was necessarily a choice as much as it was a necessity. To just get it onto as many screens as possible. Nowadays, you could watch that with the black and white lifted.
Yeah,
I think they have an uncut version of that movie.
Oh, probably.
I haven't watched it. It's hard for me to separate Kill Bill 1 from Kill Bill 2 nowadays. Mm-hmm. I just see it all as one big movie.
Which is probably what he meant for, anyway.
Yeah, I remember the cliffhanger in Kill Bill 1 blowing me away. And I hadn't been that anticipatory of the next movie coming out for a long time before that and a long time after. Anyway.
Well, this was around the time of the Lord of the Rings too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think probably like the second movie was about to come out.
That could be.
I have no idea, but I mean that spoiled me for movie cliffhangers, and
I want to say the second one was 2003 or 2004.
Might have been.
Anyway,
yeah.
So I mean, those are the main players
Cool.
in the crew. They got this movie together in a big way. And as far as the cast goes for From Dusk Till Dawn, we've got Harvey Keitel as Jacob Fuller. And you might recognize his other works from things like Mean Streets, Kojak, Taxi Driver, The Duelist, The Last Temptation of Christ, Thelma and Louise, Bugsy, Bad Lieutenant, U-571, Red Dragon, Moonrise Kingdom, The Irishman. Like, it goes on and on. But also movies like Saturn III, Sister Act, Monkey Trouble, Little Nicky, and Little Fockers. And he's also done other Tarantino movies like, you know, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards. Fucking Harvey Keitel. I understand why he was top billing for this movie, especially in the time it came out. Because the other cast is George Clooney as Seth Gecko, who, you know, he's George Clooney. But you know, he wasn't then, right? Mm-hmm. He started out in cheap indie horror movies like Grizzly 2, Revenge, and Return to Horror High, Red Surf and Return of the Killer Tomatoes, and he was in a bunch of 80s TV like The Facts of Life, Murder, She Wrote, The Golden Girls, and Roseanne, before becoming Dr. Doug Ross on over 100 episodes of ER. From Dusk Till Dawn was a breakout role for him, from which he'd go on to star in hit films like Batman and Robin, Out of Sight, Three Kings, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Ocean's 11, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Michael Clayton, Burn After Reading, Up in the Air, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Descendants, and more recently Gravity, The Midnight Sky. And also South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut.
That's where I recognized him from.
Don't forget that. Yeah, of course.
What's the South Park credit?
Sure. I haven't seen that Midnight Sky yet, but it's tearing up the ratings.
Is it?
I think people are really liking it, from what I've read. I haven't watched it yet on Netflix. He directed that one as well, and you know, he's been directing movies for the last, 20 years. I think he directed Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Ah, cool. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And a good actor. Yeah. He's George Clooney. We all love him today. But yeah, From Dusk Till Dawn, no one really knew who he was, right?
No. I think, he was on every ER promotional, event, the commercials. I mean, that was the face of NBC's biggest drama, at the time.
By then he might have been, Time Magazine's Sexiest Man of the Year or something like that. Probably. That could have happened.
So he was
before.
He was a household name before From Dusk Till Dawn, but that gave him the chops at being a Hollywood actor as opposed to a television drama.
Yeah, he was a household name, but he wasn't a name that people that were into genre movies knew.
Yeah,
he was a name if you were like I said earlier to you, a mother in the early 90s.
Oh yeah.
That knew him from things like ER and his earlier TV work like Golden Girls and shit. Juliette Lewis plays Kate Fuller, whom I'd assume would be billed above George Clooney.
Yeah.
At this point, because she was at the top of her career. Before this, she started at the age of 14 on TV. But she was in huge movies like Christmas Vacation, My Stepmother is an Alien, Cape Fear, California, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Natural Born Killers, The Basketball Diaries, Strange Days, and, this movie. And kind of after that, she really what she did after this movie and in the early 2000s, it seems to me was she was focusing on her band.
Her
rock band.
Which you can find on Spotify.
Oh, okay. I've actually never heard them. I assume it's some kind of Riot Girl kind of punk rock sort of stuff.
It's more like a bluesy punk rock.
Oh, okay.
It's really good.
The band is called Juliet and the Licks.
Yeah.
And they were going through most of the early 2000s. I think over the course they've like broken up and got back together maybe 7 times, but now they're back together again, I think, and talking about even recording new material.
Cool.
So that's sort of Juliette Lewis's thing these days.
She bought a lot of billing on her own. I know, watching movies because she was in there.
She's good. I've always liked her a lot, and she picks good movies.
Oh yeah, and she still does too. She's still making a career as an actress.
She's in TV shows here and there. She's been on some big name TV shows as like guest spot, like single episodes here and there. She's still definitely a working actress.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. So yeah, Juliette Lewis is Kate Fuller, and she's got a brother character, Scott Fuller, played by Ernest Liu, who went on to do Nothing Else Ever. And end of story.
Let me see. I'm gonna IMDb his ass
fine.
Because
I think
Here we go. Do this last time.
He was on a TV series called The Faculty.
What was that?
No, not a version of the Robert Rodriguez movie. It's something totally different.
Wow.
Some kind of sitcom. It just happens to also be called The Faculty. I think it ran for half a season before it was canceled. And then, to round it up, Quentin Tarantino, putting himself in his own scripts like he likes to do. He's playing Richard Gecko, or Richie Gecko, as he's more frequently called in the movie.
Yeah.
He originally wanted to be an actor before he became a director and writer. So I guess it's natural for him to want to put himself in his movies. You might recognize him from other roles like the movie Eddie Presley, Sleep With Me, Somebody to Love, Girl 6, God Said Ha, and Little Nicky.
Was it Little Nicky?
He was in Little Nicky, apparently. I don't remember that because I kind of hate that movie.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's a connection with Harvey Keitel also being in Little Nicky. Mm-hmm. I bet Harvey Keitel brought Tarantino on.
Watch it some like crazy thing, like he's a huge Adam Sandler fan and got a kick out of all of Adam Sandler's movies up until Little Nicky. Right, we probably
Adam Sandler has a special way of like ensnaring these great Hollywood actors like Chris Walken and Harvey Keitel to be in his shitty movies.
I've heard he's a nice guy.
I'm sure he's a super nice guy. I like early Sandler, but this specific movie, Little Nicky, was my personal turning point on that guy.
Yeah,
Adam Sandler.
Yeah. But I've been turned around. Have you seen Uncut Gems yet?
No, I really want to watch that. However, that's not like written by Adam Sandler or anything, you know. He's just an actor in that shit.
Yeah, but he's got the chops to do it, to pull it off.
That's great, and I would never doubt that, honestly. Yeah. I'm sure he does, and I like, again, the movie's on my short list, and I really do want to watch it, and I will someday. Wow. And I'm sure he's great. But it's not an Adam Sandler movie, quote-unquote, right? Yeah, anyway. Adam Sandler is not in this movie.
That we know of. He could be uncredited.
He might be an uncredited vampire.
Uncredited vampire.
Yeah, like the random guy that plays the pizza delivery boy in Home Alone.
So how do you know?
That we just found out is an uncredited vampire, as he is an uncredited everything he's ever done that you would never notice him in.
That's not an exaggeration, folks. Look him up on IMDb. We'll get his name here in a second. Yeah.
Pizza Boy in Home Alone. Look him up. It's fascinating.
Does uncredited mean that he didn't get paid for those roles? Because that's an entire career's worth of...
I don't know how it works with, like, the, SAG or anything. I would assume that if you don't get a credit, you don't get paid. So he must have been doing it for sexual favors.
Maybe.
Likely.
Yeah. Wait, who had distributed this out?
Miramax.
The movie? Yeah, the movie.
Yeah, Miramax. Which they did not distribute Home Alone.
Yeah, but everybody's connected over there, especially to, like, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein has a big net.
Yeah.
A big net, for sure. Well, that net is getting smaller by the day right now.
Is he still alive? He had COVID.
Ooh, I think he's still alive, yeah.
COVID in prison's got to be rough.
I know. Now his net is just a hairnet that he wears.
A hairnet.
Anyway.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
And beyond that, other actors who are featured in this movie include Selma Hayek, Cheech Marin, Danny Trejo, Tom Savini, Fred Williamson, Michael Parks, John Saxon, and it goes on and on. There are so many great character actors in this. Kelly Preston, John Hawkes, and some of the effects guys have little cameos like Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger. They're all in it a little bit. You know, they all get their highlights. They all get their scenes. And they do a great job. And that kind of rounds out the cast.
Okay, troops. It's the home stretch. Here's the deal. This place closes at dawn. Carlos is going to meet us here sometime before dawn. Now, we are going to go in there. We're going to take a seat. We're going to have a drink. We're going to have a bunch of drinks. And we're going to wait for Carlos. Let me just say something. I'm very happy about where we're at. We got a real nice, I don't fuck with you, you don't fuck with me attitude going on. So if everybody just keeps playing it cool, and I'm talking to you too, Richie, and everybody's going to get what they want. Okay, hard drinkers, let's drink hard. I'm buying. Come on.
So a couple alternative casting choices that were considered before George Clooney was cast are actors like Antonio Banderas, Steve Buscemi, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, John Travolta, Chris Walken, Jeff Goldblum, James Woods, and Robert De Niro.
And this is for the role of Seth Gecko?
Before George Clooney was cast as Seth, these all were apparently considered. The standout here for me is fucking Jeff Goldblum. Could you imagine Goldblum?
Yeah.
As Seth Gecko?
You know,
that's so weird.
Yeah, and a lot of these actors that you're mentioning had already, they either already had a role in a Tarantino-tied movie, or they were going to...
Buscemi, yeah.
With the exception of Goldblum.
Coming up. Well, so Travolta was the only one of these considered actors who outright turned this role down.
Oh, wow.
Because he chose to do Pulp Fiction instead.
Good choice.
So I guess they were shooting pretty close together, you know. And I Chris Walken was in that, you know, I carried that watch up my ass. He put it my Chris Walken impression. I'm sorry.
Yeah, mine is
I told you I was not going to apologize.
I didn't. I'm just telling you it's worse. I wish I could do this, though.
What, impersonation?
Yeah, I could do a Buscemi, maybe.
Try a Buscemi. Let's hear your best Buscemi.
I made that up. I lied.
Fuck. I knew it.
You're going to put me on the spot like that, then.
I carried that watch up my ass. I end up sounding like a character on South Park when I try to do Chris Walken. Anyway, all these guys were considered. Most of them couldn't do it because of scheduling conflicts. But there you have it. They got George Clooney, which I think was a good decision.
Oh, yeah.
Because George Clooney, you're not really thinking of him from other roles when you're watching this, because he wasn't really known for anything before this.
Besides TV, no.
So he could very much encapsulate this character. He outright tried to get a role like this to break free of his typecast from ER.
I think James Woods would have worked, because when he did do the vampire, Vampires was the name
Vampires,
of it, right?
Yeah.
It worked out
Fuck
pretty
that
well.
Movie. Yeah, he's all right. It was out of John Carpenter failure.
Yeah.
Vampires, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll give that movie another stab. But I don't remember liking it too much.
Dad jokes.
But yeah, James Woods is a great actor. Hey, you know. Anyway, we ended up with George Clooney, and I'm happy about it. According to Tarantino, they were considering other directors like Rennie Harlin and Tony Scott. What? If you're not familiar with Tony Scott, he's directed movies like Days of Thunder and Top Gun.
Oh, wow.
He's Ridley Scott's brother.
Oh.
He did Man on Fire, the remake with Denzel.
Denzel, yeah.
Which was pretty good. He's done a lot of great movies. Oh, he directed True Romance, which Tarantino wrote the script for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great director, but I don't see him gelling with this type of story.
You would have gotten less spooky and more action, more explosions.
More action, yeah. And even with his editing choices, like, it's very MTV music video-like most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like one step down from, what's the dude with the we just fucking brought him up, man.
Oh, yeah.
The Perv. Michael Bay, yeah.
Michael Bay, the Perv.
The Perv. What about Rennie Harlan?
Rennie Harlan is a competent director. You know, he's responsible for, like, Cliffhanger with Stallone.
Let's
you know,
go,
he does
yeah.
big action movies.
Yeah.
I think he kind of got his start doing Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. It could be Part 3, but fuck. I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to say Part 3.
I am going to look it up.
He did Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3.
I'm going to totally look it up.
That's fine. I don't care. But he could have been a good fit. Like I said, you know, he's dabbled in horror, Nightmare on Elm Street. And I could see how that kind of would have worked. And he's kind of a goofy, you know, popcorn movie director.
Okay, yeah, The Long Kiss Goodnight, Cutthroat Island,
Sure.
Cliffhanger,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Ford Fairlane, Die Hard 2. And you were right. It was Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master.
For the Dream Master, not The Dream Warriors Part 3. Okay, so I was not right. I landed heavy on 3. Okay, it's 4. Whatever. Anyway, so I want to just talk a little bit about Danny Trejo. Because how could you not talk about him when you're talking about Robert Rodriguez?
He's a scene stealer.
He's a scene stealer, and he's in all of Rodriguez's movies.
I think so.
He appears in. Yeah. I've got a list in front of me actually, at least a partial list, but he's been working with Rodriguez since as early as Desperado. Mm-hmm. He was in Spy Kids. He was in Spy Kids 2, Spy Kids 3, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Planet Terror, Grindhouse, Machete, Spy Kids 40, Machete Kills.
Isn't he also related to Rodriguez?
He's a distant cousin of Rodriguez. Oh. And you know what? They didn't find that out until way later on in their relationship. They were on some set and like they were just chatting and like, what?
Wow.
So-and-so is your aunt? That's my aunt. Through marriage or something, you know?
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
He's in all the Rodriguez movies, and in every movie that I mentioned, except for Once a Time in Mexico, where he played a character called Cucuy.
There you go. Oh, you had it.
His character in all the other movies had a quote-unquote knife-related name, like Navajas in Desperado is Spanish for folding knives, so it says here. Is that correct?
A knife, yeah.
Correct enough, yeah. Right. Razor, Charlie, Machete, you know, and on and on.
Yeah.
He just has knife-related names. If it was me in these movies, I'd probably be like Butter Knife.
I'd be Chihuahua.
They'd probably call me, Cheese Knife. Maybe.
They call me Boss.
Boss. That's not a knife. This is a knife. Anyway. Another little tidbit I wrote down here was about tattoos. You know, Seth Gecko's got that big old tribal tattoo. I don't know what tribe he thinks he's fucking from. But he's got a big old tribal tattoo, right? Well, he thought that was a great idea because he saw a movie in 1994 called Once Were Warriors. It's a family descended from Maori warriors, bedeviled by a violent father and the societal problems of being treated as outcasts. This movie starred Tamora Morrison, and he had a tribal tattoo on his neck that Clooney just thought was so cool, so he brought that to the table. He's like, hey, I think my character should have this big old tribal tattoo. It'd make me look badass. He wasn't wrong.
Oh, yeah, it worked at the time. Now if you see a main character like that, you just think douchebag.
I know. It was very cool, though, in the mid-90s. Yeah.
He grabbed it from Jango Fett.
So, this is a fun foreign title for this movie. The franchise itself is titled A Drink in Hell in Brazilian Portuguese.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
Drink
works.
in Hell. I think that works. I think that should have been the title.
Yeah. I like that title.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know how that translates. Like, they don't have a word for dusk and dawn?
In Portuguese? I don't know how to speak Portuguese.
Yo, you don't? The fuck? You're fired.
You're fired.
Damn. Well, anyway, I just would think that...
I'm gonna
I would just think that they'd have a more direct translation of that. Anyway.
Portuguese. I'm doing it.
Portuguese. Google. Translate.
Oh, my God. Crepusculo? Alvorecer? I don't know. Don't at me in the comments. And if you do, go put it in the feedback and give us 5-star ratings.
This is interesting. The band Rammstein.
Yeah, familiar.
Yeah. Their video for the song Engel is an homage to this movie.
Hey, awesome.
I don't know. Isn't that fun? They love this movie.
You know, well, I mean, I don't blame them. It's a good movie.
And it is. I mean, I checked out the video, and it takes place in like a kind of seedy-like Hispanic bar.
Ah, cool.
That's about it. You know what? If you didn't tell me that, I might not have picked up on that.
Yeah.
Actually. But anyway.
So, hey, I'm going to throw in a comic fact here. There's also an homage cover to the movie poster for From Dusk Till Dawn in Clayton Crane X-Men number 22 from 2008.
X-Men number 22.
I'm sorry,
That's
X-Force.
cool.
X-Force number 22.
X-Force,
X-Force
okay.
Volume 3. Clayton Crane. Yeah, it's got Wolverine on the cover, you know, in the Seth Gecko place.
Okay, holding that gun right up to your face there.
Well, it's his claws, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Wolverine. So.
Sure. What? Wolverine doesn't need a gun?
Fastball special, man.
Give Wolverine guns.
Just get somebody
so redundant.
who's strong enough to lift, you know, this heavy ass, and
Colossus will do just fine. In all that, the most interesting trivia I discovered in this research is that this movie was also adapted into a comic book.
Yeah.
In the spring of 1996 by Body Bag, an imprint of Big Entertainment. After this commercial break, we're going to get into this comic and see how it stacks up.
Hey kids, are you worried about COVID floating around your local comic shop? Well, fear no more. Black Market Comics carries only the cleanest, most sanitary comics in the world. Unlike our competitors, these comics have never been sneezed on. Trust Black Market Comics. You can find us on Instagram at black_markets_comics, on Facebook, Black Market Comics RGV, or our eBay store. That's ebay.com/USR/blackmarketcomics.
All right, Ramblers, let's get rambling. Henry, do you think that this movie would make a good comic? I mean, we're about to get into the comic book, but is this fodder for comic adaptation?
Is this knowing that there's going to be sequels?
No, it's not. Because at this point, when this comic was coming out, it wasn't known, I don't think.
The thing about this movie, and I think what makes a good comic, is the lore. And this movie had it. Even in that first movie, you know, you didn't need more than one to understand that there's backstory. There's avenues that weren't explored, maybe because of time restraints or budgetary restrictions. So would it make a good comic? An ongoing series, maybe? A mini-series? Yeah.
It would make a real cool ongoing series, I think. I mean, you know, a lot of that lore from the first movie comes in the very last 60 seconds of the fucking movie, where they're pulling out and you see that they're on top of this ancient temple, and you kind of go, your mind just races from there, right?
Yeah.
And if you took off on that with a comic book, you could go for a long time, I think.
Yeah. And the thing about comics is that you have no, restrictions because of technology or anything. You can make anything happen. They could be from Mars.
Makes me wonder why that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, this is it's totally, basis for a series. Now, what ended up happening was that we've got a single one-shot issue. So going back to the question, would I have considered this a good idea for our comic book? Yeah.
I think it's pretty easily adaptable to the comic page.
And expandable.
Mm-hmm. Which is like the best of both worlds. That's what you want.
Right.
It's just still interesting to me why they haven't expanded on it in comics, because, we all know that these adaptations isn't where it's at, really. They're not always doing anything too new for the myth or the franchise. Exactly.
Right. And I'm racing in my head trying to think of a situation where they did successfully, and nothing comes to mind.
No, it's hard. But, well, they did this comic, and it makes sense to me.
In this comic book...
Oh, what have you learned so far in your investigation on the subject of comic books?
And this comic book business is really big business.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
They will become adamant and vigorous about it.
What do you think of comic books?
Well, I feel about the same way you do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, what about the effect of these comic books on the children?
Tell me about some of the stories you read in comic books.
And through programs of this kind
And does your mother know that these comic books upset you when you read them? Tell me how comic books make you feel. Can you tell me a story that you read in a comic book? Could you tell me one of the stories you've read in a comic book? Do you read comic books?
So this comic was written by Ed Polgardi. And Ed Polgardi is mostly into filmmaking. Like, he hasn't done much work in comics. Before From Dusk Till Dawn, he had done some comic work. He was the creator and writer of a miniseries called From the Darkness, which was published by Malibu Graphics. Yeah, and it's also a vampire story, so he's been into this stuff for a long time. What he wanted to be was a filmmaker. He is a filmmaker currently, and that was always his passion. The reason he did comic books is because it was cheaper to produce than a film.
Yeah, special effects budgets in particular, right?
Especially when it's, horror or fantasy, stuff like that. It's going to get expensive. So he thought, well, I really just want to tell my story still. Let's do a comic. Let's fucking get it out there in comic form.
And was this in the 90s?
This is in the 90s.
Because it makes a big difference.
Let me look. This was, very early 90s. 1991, Behind the Darkness happened.
Okay, yeah, so that's at the start of the boom. This is after, let's say Ninja Turtles has come out. And it's become, Eastman and Laird had hit the comic lottery at that point.
Yep, with Mirage Studios.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were able to license pretty quickly, and then, came up with a gajillion dollar idea.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Who wouldn't want to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, right. But Polgardi, it seems to me like he is really just a storyteller that wanted to tell a story, and he's going with, whatever medium can get that done. Interestingly enough, he also tried to make a movie in the late 80s called Masked Mutilator.
Oh my God.
That involved pro wrestlers and stuff like that. And it was an unfinished project that just recently, over the last couple years, got finished.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it got I'd really love to see it, but I haven't yet. And it's, I guess they shot new scenes to flesh out what they were missing, something like that. Listeners, go look it up. It's called Masked Mutilator, and you can buy a Blu-ray copy of it now as a finished product, which I'm sure Ed Polgardi had oversight, when they were finishing up this project.
Mm. Well, you get that much of a say when you've been around as long as Ed has. And have gotten the awards that he has, too. From
and he's just got his fingers in all these little projects, like TV and, a lot of, genre stuff, horror and things like that. But he recently had huge success in this movie he produced called The Wretched, which came out last year.
Wow.
And part of the reason why it became so successful, which I'm sure it's a great movie on its own, and again, I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's great, but it was so successful last summer because of the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, remember? Movie theaters are closed. Remember?
Yeah. There was no new movies for almost a year.
except in drive-in movie theaters. And that's where this movie flourished.
Wow.
The Wretched. It was the highest grossing movie of like fucking July that summer or something. Because it was the only movie.
Yeah. Imagine the last time that happened, that the drive-in industry was powerful enough to be able to
The
keep
top grossing
like
movie of that month, of that season,
Yeah. It's crazy.
It was the top grossing movie of like the summer in box office or something. Because it was the only one being shown in drive-ins.
Yeah, your choices were that or the 77th viewing of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, man. One is plenty for me. Thank you. Yeah. But I think you could watch The Wretched on Hulu or something nowadays. I'm pretty sure it's on HBO Max or something. I'd like to check it out. Go check it out. Anyway, Ed Polgardi. Not necessarily a comics guy, more of a filmmaker. And currently he heads up, and he's the president of his own production company called Black Hat Magic. He's working hard, this guy.
And still in the industry. Because we're going to see a couple of folks on here. I know one in particular we're going to talk about pretty soon, who's not in the industry, who had a huge impact in comics, and just kind of no longer works in the field.
Well, you're not talking about Trevor Von Eden, who is the layout penciler for this From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, definitely not him.
Right?
No, that man is a legend. He is the co-creator of DC's Black Lightning character.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yep, he's actually with the CW having the Black Lightning series. Is that still a thing?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure, but he was in a couple of episodes.
So, Trevor Von Eden did some layouts, and also this Fred Harper fellow did layouts, and also some finishes.
I think probably now's a good time to talk about the difference between somebody who works on layouts and someone who works on background and finishes. That separation of tasks has been around comics since the 60s, 70s, maybe even before that. In a typical comic, 9 times out of 10 you open a book and you're going to see artist, inker, or you're going to see a penciler, inker, and colorist, right? Well, sometimes you're trying to get a big known name, like in this case, Trevor Von Eden. That's not somebody to sneeze at. You want him to get him on the book, but he doesn't have the time, especially if you only have 4 weeks to do this. He doesn't have the time to dedicate to completely drawing a book or doing the pencils from, for 64 pages or whatever it was. So you bring him in to do layouts, and what the layouts will determine is the panel size, the panel layouts. It will also determine camera angles. I'm going to use camera, quote unquote.
Yeah, I follow.
But it's going to dictate what view the reader is seeing in a panel.
That's important stuff.
Yeah. And then somebody like Fred Harper, Richard Clark on this book will go in and do the inks. They will finish the art details like faces, noses, eyes, background details, picture frames that are on the wall, cars, buildings, based off of the camera angles that Trevor Von Eden had come up with in his tasks.
But Trevor Von Eden, since he was kind of like the first layout designer, he did not have a movie to watch.
No, they worked on this. And I think everybody, whether you were the colorist, the writer, Ed, only had an early screenplay version at that, but they only had a screenplay to work off of. So when they're looking at these characters, you've got to draw Harvey Keitel and Juliette Lewis, but you've got to make sure that they're not caricatures of those actors. They're going
these actors are casts. They're cast. But you haven't seen them in the movie yet.
The major characters.
So,
were cast.
That's why Harvey Keitel ends up with no beard.
Right? Yeah, they had to.
And he's got a beard in the movie.
Yeah. What was the movie that Harvey Keitel had done before this?
Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. So they're going to use the likeness that he had in Reservoir Dogs to draw him in the comic book, and you see that throughout the book.
A beardless Harvey,
especially in the zoomed framed panels of Harvey Keitel's face and his reaction to things.
Take the butt of your gun and smash the nose in.
Yeah. Yep. Fred Harper, you might know from Animal Man. When
absolutely.
When
Grant
DC
Morrison's
the Grant Morrison
run?
stuff, the Vertigo Animal Man stuff, back that started in '88, ran for 100 issues or more. He worked on Animal Man after Grant Morrison had already left the title, but it was still a very popular title at the time. Backgrounds and some of the finishing artwork were done by Richard Clark, who was and still is in the industry as an inker. He's done comics like The Boys was probably one of the most popular ones right now because of that Amazon
now
series.
A TV show,
Now a TV show,
Crazy. All these people are working.
Yeah. These were people that were already in the industry. Trevor Von Eaton had been in comics since the 70s. He knew Jim Shooter. He was very popular at the time. He was like the illustrator's illustrator.
This motherfucker broke into comics at like the age of fucking
17 or something, yeah.
Whatever. Like, he was a boy.
Yeah.
And like, he had already produced his own full-on comics. And like, walked him into DC and they gave him a job on the spot.
He was
like,
forced,
I think that's the legend,
pressured.
right?
He was pressured by friends. His version of the story is his friends had pressured him into submitting some artwork because they were comic book fans. He was an illustrator. He just liked to draw.
Yeah.
And he impressed a lot of people.
He's like, I don't know if I'm any good, guys.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
And age has a lot to do with that,
Have a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want the new talent.
Yeah, they do.
Over there, typically. It's good stuff. Well,
one more thing about his tie to Frank Miller. Frank Miller had actually, during Batman Year One, had asked that Trevor Von Eaton be the artist, but he turned it down for some reason, and he hasn't said why. Why would you turn down Frank Miller? But
that's crazy. Well, also in the credits here, I see the colorist is Prismacolor. And
that was...
I understand that Prismacolors are art markers. So, did they just hook a bunch of art markers up to a computer and say, color this?
Folks, if you go in online, you Google Prismacolors, that's all you're going to come up with. You're not going to come up with this comic book studio that was around in the mid-90s, led by a man named Demetrius Basokos, or something Greek.
Demetrius.
This man, he's not in the industry anymore. He had been in the industry during the early 90s, so much so that he was very close to Rob Liefeld. If you don't know who Rob Liefeld is, we've got some Googling to handle. Reach out to me. I'll show you some awesome stuff.
Rob Liefeld.
From Rob Liefeld. I'll show you the horrible and the amazing.
Oh, we all know about Deadpool these days.
Yeah. Rob Liefeld, he's from what I've heard, I've never met the man, but he's very friendly. He will talk to you if he's got the time at a convention. I mean, he's Rob Liefeld now. He doesn't have the time anymore. But at the time that he had met Demetrius, this is the early 90s. He's having a conversation with the guy, and he talks to him about the future of comics being everything done in a computer.
Wow, he was ahead of the curve.
He was. And
that did kind of end up happening.
And that really sunk in with Demetrius, who ended up learning the programs and the hardware that was necessary to do this. And Prismacolor ended up being one of the first comic book studios that did complete computer coloring on these books. So From Dusk Till Dawn adaptation is all done in a computer. Very early versions. I don't even think Photoshop was out at that point yet. So this is pre-Photoshop.
Probably not, no.
Yeah, it's pre-Photoshop. And if Photoshop was around, it wasn't at the ability that it is now.
Photoshop's like 2000.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But.
Yeah. So he handled a lot of coloring. And the coloring wasn't just on this book. He did a lot for what was Big Entertainment's Techno Comics? They had that subset.
Technophage, Techno Comics.
Yeah, Techno
Technophage stuff.
So the stuff like Primortals that Leonard Nimoy had, quote unquote, created.
Right.
Every comic that they were releasing
sold his name to
was being done, and he did these colorings in an amazing turnaround time. It was
at this time. Who else do you go to for that kind of work?
For computer coloring, you don't have anybody.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. His team is the team.
You want to get it done. You want to get a book done fast. That's the way to do it. And these comic adaptations have to happen fast.
Yeah. These machines that they were using to do it, the hardware, the desktop computers themselves were. I mean, we didn't have, the laptops that we do now today. So these were very expensive machines that stayed in the office that were shared by a lot of a kind of a rotating roster of programmers. They were colorists, but they were programmers. What Demetrius did with computers ended up. He followed that. He kept up with technology. He ended up doing the app. One of the first apps that was available for the San Diego Comic-Con. He developed the app that had a map on there, the scheduling, and all
very
that kind
cool.
of stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Nowadays, that's the only way you navigate the con.
Is it?
I would assume.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd imagine so. I mean, that's what you go to a theme park.
I haven't been myself in
phone.
A good decade, but yeah.
Yeah. And to this day, he still works a lot online. He actually is pretty well off. He supports himself by what did he create? Nutritional supplements. He sells nutritional supplements off of a website. You look up Demetrius Basokos. It's an interesting story.
This guy's just like
he's a man of all trades, and he goes where the money's at.
A jack of all trades. Yeah, he's a entrepreneur.
Yeah. Now,
cool.
Yeah, but
he's like a Renaissance man.
Yeah, very, very little of this information is available online. I got this by digging through his Facebook page like a creep.
Well, I mean,
I also reached out to a couple of YouTubers that I follow. Shout out to Uncle Jerk, who is on YouTube. Check out his channel. He's very helpful too. I sent him a message through Instagram, and he helped me research a lot of this stuff. So, yeah.
Well, fun.
Yeah. Other folks on the creative team were letterers like Ken Bruzenak. He worked on lettering for Howard Chaykin's American Flag comics. Hellboy lettering was mainly done by Glenn Robinson, who works on this adaptation as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Letterers never really stand out to me in comics.
They don't.
I don't know why they would exactly.
Well,
are they the ones who determine like also what color the speech bubbles are?
Yeah, the shape.
That let you know who they're coming from.
The shape and the size of those. They also do the onomatopoeias. Is that what I'm looking for?
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
That's a sound effect. I would assume that was done by the penciler, because it's kind of part of the artwork usually.
Sometimes, but I mean, remember they don't have a lot of time to put a lot of detail. They're dedicating the time that they have to detail on the characters, and things like that. Backgrounds too are done. A lot of art is done by inkers, colorists, and letterers.
Well, what's up with this other credit that they're just giving special thanks to someone in the editorial department, William Wiebking?
Wiebking, yeah. Yeah, I thought that
What's
was
that
really strange too, because I an editorial assistant, which means that this guy is going to be an assistant to an editor. So he's going to help proofread. He's going to help anything and everything that needs to get done from an editor's standpoint. Would go through him. Why give him such? And it's a big area inside of the book that big text that says special thanks to this one person.
It is, yeah.
Think about the,
and nobody else, just him.
Yeah. Think about the time frame that it took, that they took, the 4 weeks that it took to get this book out. As let's say 4 artists that they had, 4 weeks is not a lot of time, even back in the 90s, especially with new software that they were using for coloring. And Ed taking a long time, to be honest, on scripting it.
Yeah.
There had to be a lot of work that needed to get done, and the editorial assistant was the man that ended up with that weight.
Yeah, well, Ed Polgardi pared down a lot of this story to fit into these 48 pages or whatever.
Yeah, we'll see that.
And
we'll point out.
I feel like he had some pretty hard cuts to make. I bet they were pretty tough decisions.
They had to be.
Yeah.
And even in the extra material that's in the deluxe edition, you'll see that there was some discussion between the artists and Ed, some headbutting that had to have taken place because there was, should we include this from the movie or that part of the script? And Ed had to make the decision as editor. He was the man in charge there.
That must be the hardest thing about adapting any of these movies. So, I think that kind of does it for everyone that was involved in making this comic. In the back matter, there are some fun pin-ups.
There's some really well drawn
in the regular edition and the deluxe edition, or are they not in the deluxe edition? That's a good question. Now,
I don't know. Check that out.
No, it's just so if you buy the deluxe edition, you don't get the deluxe benefit of having those pinups that are only in the regular edition.
That's strange because those pinups are really nice.
They are nice. They're in the back of the regular version, and they're pretty great.
Those pinups were completed by Trevor Von Eden, Fred Harper, the artist in the interior of the books. But you'll also see that Kurt Van Wormer, he did some. He's not a comic dude. He doesn't work on comics. His claim to fame is storyboards.
Oh, okay.
He is an Emmy Award-winning storyboard artist for a bunch of 90s and early 2000s cartoons. X-Men the Animated Series, Transformers, all of the DC animated movies like The Killing Joke.
Wow.
Kevin Smith movies. He did the storyboards for Mallrats and Chasing Amy. Yeah. Teen Titans.
Dude, that Killing Joke
Mickey
when
Mouse.
he fucked Batgirl in the beginning. I'm sorry to jump into this, but what the fuck, dude? I was one of the people who actually went and saw that in a theater.
They had that in theaters?
They did. It was a limited run, and it happened to be playing in my town, so I went and saw it because I was very excited. Like, I love that comic.
Yeah.
And that whole first 20 minutes, I was just baffled. That, and I want to say, who was responsible for that?
For The Killing Joke?
The additions to The Killing Joke in the animated version. I feel like it was, what's his name? Azzarello. It was Brian Azzarello who wrote all that shit.
Oh, my God. He wrote the screenplay?
I don't know if he wrote the screenplay, but he wrote the additional material that takes place before the comic happens in the movie.
Wow, Brian Azzarello sucks.
Because, The Killing Joke is a single issue. Like, you can't make that into a feature-length movie. So I guess they had to add something. I guess I understand that.
Not in a version... You can't show that in a version that you can play in the United States.
Yeah, I know.
It's twisted, but it's good. Now, that animated movie, Brian Azzarello is kind of weird, though. I mean, he's had a lot of good luck writing Batman comics. Mm-hmm. And I'll give him credit where credit is due. But his early work from Chicago, he was doing... Do you remember in the, early to mid-90s, there was a lot of these gore, like Faust, gory comics that pushed boundaries.
Yeah, right.
He did one, and he was the editor-in-chief. And it's super weird.
Yeah, he's
kind of like
miss.
Brian Pulido, Lady Death's or Evil Ernie stuff.
I really like that 100 Bullets, stuff.
Yeah, 100 Bullets. Yeah.
But then there's other things like...
Yeah, he did... It was North Star Comics. He was the editor-in-chief of North Star Comics in the mid-90s. We can probably include a... You know what? I've got a picture of the cover on my Instagram page. If you want to check me out on Instagram, it's Black Market Comics.
At Black Market Comics on Instagram.
It's right up there with what he's done with The Killing Joke. It's not a very good book.
Azzarello wrote
but it's comic history.
He wrote one of the worst Superman comics I've ever read.
Which was
Superman for Tomorrow. You ever read that? It was so weird, and I don't remember even understanding what the plot was. Anyway, let's get back to this shit.
Let's get back.
Brian Azzarello derailed us.
Damn you!
I always try to find him at cons, and sometimes I'll even ask other creators and stuff like, "Hey, isn't Azzarello here? Like, have you seen him around?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, he's probably at the bar." They say he never sits at his booth.
Well, he's found success in comics, though. I mean, you don't work for DC if you're that much of a slack-off,
Yeah, I guess so. I like a lot of his stuff, but he really has some, like, way whiffer misses.
Yeah. That wraps up the creative team. Crack this bad boy open here. Both comics are going to be exactly the same as far as content goes. So the deluxe edition doesn't have any extra scenes, no extra conversation, none of that.
Right.
But we open up with the exact opening scene from the movie at Benny's World of Liquor. Texas Ranger walks into the liquor store. Their dialogue is very similar to what you see in the movie.
It's a little shortened, right?
It's shortened,
yeah.
But it was interesting to see what was included, because the dialogue here was written off of an early screenplay. It wasn't, finalized by any means. They were still filming this movie during the production of the comic, and so, you'll see some of what stayed, some of it's a little bit different, but
absolutely.
Overall, the story is extremely similar to the film. Page 2, though, does have this giant splash page by Trevor Von Eeden, which, as a side note, was recently sold at an auction house. So that page is in the hands of a private collector now.
I saw that up for sale recently. Yeah. Did that sell?
It sold.
That's pretty cool. Good. It's a real great splash page. And, you know right what you're getting into here right away.
Yeah.
And I like the reveal that I know they plan to put this on the second page, so you flip it and it hits you
face.
Quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really in your face, like it was in the movie.
Yeah.
Because in the movie you don't see Richie approaching him from behind. You don't see a gun or anything. You just see his fucking face explode.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a nice way to give you that kind of surprise, is by putting it on the flip page.
Yeah. The splash. Literally splash.
Right. You get splashed right in.
Yeah. So then you see in the background there that it's Richie Gecko, who had pulled the trigger. Seth confronts him about it.
Yeah, this is one of the little ways that they set up their relationship. This is one of the little things they do in the comics to tell you that, Richie's kind of the crazy one of the bunch.
Right.
And Seth doesn't put up with that shit.
Yeah.
Which they kind of don't really emphasize in the rest of this comic.
Yeah, they left that in there, but it's nowhere else. Later on, you'll see in the RV scene, which we'll get to in a moment here. But
which is a good deal different from the movie.
Yeah. Either way, though, the clerk argues with the brothers. Richie shoots him just like in the movie. The clerk does have a gun underneath the counter.
He sure does.
And that's
big ass gun right there.
Yeah, and that's when Richie gets shot through the hand.
So, dude, you know what? Who is this clerk? Does he own? Is this Benny?
That's
because I've had clerical jobs before, and I am not getting into a gunfight over some shitty job. So, I'm out of there so fast, especially if I got shot in the shoulder.
I'm going to take my notebook here. I'm going to close it because we're going to have this conversation. So I always told myself, I'm not risking my neck for anybody else's money other than my own. You know, even if there's a gun available,
let's talk about an amount. What are we talking about?
Like, you know, the other
$10 here, have it. I don't want to fight you.
Like about a week ago here locally, you know, on social media, there's a video of it and everything. But apparently, there was a beer run. The clerk decides here. This is real life, by the way. The clerk decides to try to stop the beer run from happening, and the perpetrators there beat the living piss out of the dude. So
Really?
much so that he's out of it and he's bleeding. And of course, I don't know if you've ever bled from your face, but it feels warm. You know, and the guy, he turns to the woman who's taking this photo. I mean, because you know, it's there's other people there. Turns to the woman that's taking with her cell phone, the cell phone footage, and he's like, "Do I have a flap of skin hanging down or something?" Like he's out of it, and he thinks he got beat to shit. Of course he doesn't. He's got a little cut or something, but of course, you know, it's going to bleed.
It always seems worse. Yeah.
It always seems worse because it's going to bleed in
on
the head.
face.
Yeah. But either way, the dude felt the need to try to you know, action hero over there. I think he thought he was John Wick or something. He was going to diss
for a case of beer.
For a case of
place has
beer,
insurance.
Dude. So you know, this is you know, I before that I always thought like, I'm not going to risk my ass for this shit. You know, let him just you know, and the clerk here in the scene goes and begins a shootout with two armed, you know. I don't know. He doesn't know if
he already knows. He already knows at this point that these are those guys.
Oh, okay, so he knows about the manhunt.
Wouldn't you? Well, that's what he was talking about with the.
Oh yeah, the Texas Ranger. Yeah.
That's what their conversation was all about. He's like, "Yeah, I'm hunting these guys," and he's giving them all the details. By the way, so many details on an ongoing case to this random like liquor store clerk.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's what he's talking about. So he's had to have put two and two together.
So he knows who he's dealing with, yeah. And you know, before this you know, post that I ended up seeing, I wouldn't have believed that was like a you know, a real action that somebody would undertake. And sure enough, it is.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes people just think they're going to be a hero. And also, I guess, I mean, I'm not a gun owner in life, but I assume that if you own a gun, eventually you're going to want to use it at some point. Yeah. Otherwise, it just sits there like a piece of furniture or paperweight or something. Like it's useless unless you're shooting somebody with it.
Yeah.
So, like, I would assume that, you know, there's got to be like something subconscious in him that, like, he's like, finally, an opportunity to pull out my fucking pistol.
Yeah.
And pop off a couple.
Let me also add that this clerk who was working at this gas station, it wasn't a mom and pop shop. It was one of the big franchises that I've seen across the state. All over the place, you know. So it wasn't. He wasn't protecting anybody's.
No, you're throwing down for a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
The only people that are going to lose are the corporate buttholes at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like?
Yeah, it's not even a franchise. It was, you know, corporately owned company, and he thought he was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Anyway, sort of like this fellow here. What's his name? Does he get a name?
He does, and I don't have it.
I think he does in the credits of the movie.
He does in the credits. Didn't we see somebody mention? Oh, it was in. We just talked about it a little while ago with the parental. You know.
The parental warning. Yeah, warnings. Right.
Yeah,
on IMDb.
Yeah. So just like the movie, we'll go back here. The movie. You know, Richie gets shot through the hand. There's a hole in his hand. It happens in the comic book as well. The brothers then begin the shootout, shooting out liquor bottles that end up pouring all over the clerk behind the counter.
Yeah.
The Gecko brothers in the movie
they make that. You know what? I don't know. They make that fairly clear here that liquor is pouring down.
Yeah, because it's important.
I might not know that if I hadn't seen the movie.
Yeah.
But it is important because they use it to catch the desk on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, with the roll of paper towels that they toss in
paper towels,
which looks like a burrito.
It does look like a burrito.
Yeah.
I think it was a roll of toilet paper in the movie.
Yeah.
Which would have been easier to draw, I think. But now he's like trying to bargain with them. He shouldn't have shot at him in the first place. But anyway. And they go through this This is one little bit. This is, if you go back a page, actually, this is a good example of how some of the comedy in the movie gets lost in this book. Because I crack up when Richie is trying to convince Seth that this guy called for help.
Mm-hmm.
And he's mouthing the lines,
yeah.
help us, like an example like of what he did, and it's so funny. Like, no, he was mouthing it. I saw him. You know, he would do it like this, and he would explain, help us, with a little mouth. And I giggle in the movie when that happens, and I guess they don't have a way to really do that here.
No.
How can they do someone mouthing a word,
yeah.
in a comic? That's the kind of stuff that can't cross over mediums.
Yeah.
So that's lost here. But anyway.
Yeah, so and that's almost like kind of one of the flares of a Tarantino or a Robert Rodriguez movie, some similar styles.
Absolutely.
That's not going to translate well on paper.
Some of this dark comedy.
Yeah.
But anyway, they light this bar up, and I love this panel of the bar lighting up. And you see Richie and Seth. One of them's lighting a cigarette. Oh, that's because I see the bleeding hand, so that must be Seth lighting that cigarette. And they're on the sides of this counter looking at it light up. And you see the flames and the sound effect, the onomatopoeia is like drawn into the flames. So you subconsciously like hear the whoosh of the fire erupting. And you see his little face in agony like in behind those flames, just like burning up. And it's just like a pretty effective little tiny panel in the bottom right corner of page 3 here or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not dead. He comes firing out of that fire with his guns blazing again.
Yeah, so the store is up in flames, and you can really see the computer coloring here. You know, that's very airbrushy.
Yeah, it sure is.
A lot of the ink work is down on here, so I think that really helped in the coloring method. But it's 3 colors, 4
dithering
colors
yeah.
on here.
But you're right, like the black ink work.
It's really
makes it pop.
It's
a
really
better,
hard
I think.
It's really hard to get that kind of color by hand.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You know, especially before computer coloring was around. You know, you had to do this on an acetate film, and that stuff doesn't pick up the ink the same way that paper would. So when it's finally printed, it's not going to look anywhere like this. And you'll see that in other comics around like the early 80s. Where that Marvel color method had come into play, where artists were doing all that coloring themselves, which we're going to talk about in a later episode anyway, I think. But
yeah, absolutely. Probably, I'm just going to say it right now, next episode,
yeah. But my point is that the computer coloring, it's here. You can tell that it's here. But to me, it looks pretty good. I mean, you know, you're going to get coloring in a way that you're not going to by hand. So the brothers walk out of the store as it's in flames. The clerk is burning to death. He's already been shot too, so I'm sure, you know, it's implied that he's not around anymore. But if you take a look at one of these mid panels, you remember the movie? There was the hostages that were taken.
Is that who you see running out of this place burning down? You think?
That's who I'm assuming. I mean, there's hair.
The clerk's not running out; he's dead. The sheriff's not running out; he's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah, you're right. There's hair, like
the Gecko brothers. Yeah, there's hair,
like likely a woman's long hair.
Right.
It's possible. It's possible they even had drawn some a panel or a page, and then scrapped it.
Yeah.
That dealt with the hostage situation in the beginning. Oh yeah, which doesn't take place in this comic at all.
At all.
Right.
So the Gecko brothers, as they're walking to their car.
Well, he's also saying, "What about the 2 hostages, Seth? You want me to chase them down and blow their fucking brains out?"
Yeah.
So that's clearly the 2 hostages.
Yeah, and the first time I read through this, you missed the little figures. I just figured that he was, you know, talking about them in general, but like even Richie is facing that direction too. So
now they're at the gravy. Now we're at the gravy train. We've left Seth and Richie, and we've caught up with...
right, and you've seen... This is the Fuller family.
The Fuller family.
Yeah, the Fuller family is made up of the father, Jacob, and the children, Kate and Scott.
Kate and Scott.
Right. At this point, they're eating in the diner here. There's a lot of detail in the background. You can tell that there was some time spent on this particular page. A lot more color than we've seen so far, with the exception of the splash page.
You could tell that they wanted to choose like bright, vibrant colors, which, like, I'm guessing because it gives you like a lighter, more vibrant, happy mood.
Right. Yeah.
Than like the mayhem colors that you're looking at on this last page, where they're burning down this thing and shooting it, which is a lot of browns and earth tones and fire color and stuff.
Yeah.
It looks dangerous, and then all of a sudden it doesn't.
Yeah.
At the gravy train.
Yeah, this is where the Fuller family's talking about how exhausted they are, and they are mentioning, while Jacob is telling his children we're going to end up staying at a hotel, even though they're traveling in an RV. After we meet the Fuller family and find out what they're planning as their next move in their trip to Mexico, we are at the outskirts of El Paso. The caption mentions that they're 28 miles east of the Mexican border.
Getting close.
They're at the Dewdrop Inn.
All these names are so Tarantino.
Yeah, totally.
Benny's World of Liquor, the Gravy Train, Dewdrop Inn. Those are just drip with Tarantino.
Yeah.
I think.
Agreed. Seth mentions that they're going to drive around to scope out the border and check out how things are. Because keep in mind, this is during a manhunt where they know, the law enforcement knows pretty much where they're at and where they're headed. Yeah. This is the first mention of a Mexican contact named Carlos, who plans to rendezvous with them and get them safely over to some place called El Rey.
El Rey.
Yeah.
Is it a real place in Mexico?
I don't think so, but...
You want sanctuary in El Rey? You give them 30% of your loot. It's scripture.
Right.
Richie's... They're arguing.
Yeah. Richie's upset about the rate that they're going to charge the brothers.
Yeah, dude. I remember I looked this up when we were talking about it before, just about like your standard bank robbery in America and how much you walk away with. And if that's all they did, I think they've got like a couple grand with them. Like it's not that much.
Yeah.
One bank. Is that what they did? Is knocked over a bank? Well, I know they murdered people, but like, how much money do you think they have with them in this briefcase?
They don't go into that in the movie at all. But they do in the TV series. It's a little bit different, and I think that Robert Rodriguez and team really did expand on, what they felt at this time, they could have improved in the original screenplay.
Yeah, that's good that they did that there, because it doesn't make any sense to me here.
Right.
That they're doing all this for such a measly amount of money.
Right. The brothers argue there about the price, and Seth mentions that he is going to be right back. He cuts that conversation up abruptly, though. Like, he's really putting his foot down, and you can tell the dynamic that the two of them have in their brother relationship.
He's the boss.
Seth
he's
is the
boss.
leader. Yeah, definitely.
He's the Mo Howard.
Yeah. We don't know who's
even kind of got a Mo Howard haircut.
Yeah.
Actually. He's working on it. He's growing it out. Wise guys, eh?
Next scene is the Fullers done at the gravy train, back in the RV, 28 miles. No, I'm sorry. That's the last page. We don't know how far they are away from El Paso or the Mexican border, but we do know that that's where they're headed. And this is an exposition page, so there's only a conversation between Kate and Jacob about the loss of Jacob's faith, and we learn here for the first time that Kate's mother, Jacob's wife, has recently died. And
he's a preacher. He's a Baptist preacher.
Yeah. This is another one of those scenes, just like the last one, where we see the dynamic that this family has, where Jacob really does put his foot down and kind of gut punches her into dropping the subject.
Yeah, well, he sounds like he doesn't really have a plan.
No.
It sounds like he just came to a head and he kind of bailed with his family. Because they don't know if they're returning, and they have this little conversation that, like, someone at the Bethel Baptist Church is filling in for him, and they said they'll hold his place, but they don't want to make him permanent in case they came back.
Right.
So, like, their life is still waiting for them that they left, but they just bailed on it.
What do you think about this last line here on the page? Mom's got nothing to say, she's dead. That's a very Tarantino thing to put on there, too.
But it's so real.
It's very real, yeah.
Like, he's hurting.
Yeah, but also, like, he's making sure that Kate understands that, you know, this conversation is over, like, shocking her into submission there.
Don't you believe in God anymore? The daughter asked. And he says, not enough to be a pastor. I wish that this storyline had any bearing on what happened in the Titty Twister later. But it doesn't really.
No, it doesn't.
I wish that, like, they alluded to the idea that, like, because he's lost faith, the vampires are more powerful or something later on. They could have done something like that, but they didn't. We'll talk about that more when we get into the Titty Twister, I'm sure.
All right.
Has anybody here read a real book about vampires, or are we just remembering what some movie said? I mean, a real book.
You mean like a Time Life book?
I take it the answer's no. Okay, then. What do we know about these vampires?
Well, we know they got superhuman strength, but we can hurt them.
Yeah.
Another thing, though, if you're gonna drive a chair leg through a human, you better be one strong son of a bitch. I mean, human body is one rough, tough machine. But these vamps, they have soft bodies. The texture of their skin is softer. They're mushier. You can push it right through them. Conceivably, if you hit one hard enough, take their head right off.
The next scene, we're back at the Dewdrop Inn. Richie's
with
back.
Seth and Richie.
Yeah, Seth and Richie. Seth is back. Tosses over a big kahuna burger bag.
Yeah, and in his hand you see him smoking, and this would be a good chance to get in Red Apple cigarettes too, but they didn't do that for some reason.
Did they in the film? I didn't even catch that in the film.
I don't think so.
Oh.
No. And on the background, on the TV in the background, you can see that they've got a couple mugshots.
Oh, yeah, mugshots, yeah.
Of what I assume to be them.
Yeah.
That does not look like Quentin Tarantino catching that burger bag right there. Not at all.
But you can
see... It looks more like Harvey Keitel.
You can see that he's nervous. I mean, he's right at the window, checking.
Oh yeah,
he's
looking out the window. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Obviously, it's been enough time to where Richie is annoyed about how long Seth took. Seth just kind of brushes it off and explains that there's an expanded police presence in the area. And, you know, they're in El Paso at this point. But Seth, mentions the urgency of needing to leave and make it over the border tonight because Carlos is going to be meeting them at the famous Titty Twister, and then escort them from the bar to El Rey. We've got the conversation continuing. Richie's describing the report that he's seen, assuming on television there, because we saw the mug shots, but about the manhunt.
Yeah, he's saying some hotshot FBI prick claims he's going to apprehend us in 48 hours. This is the kind of stuff that I wish would have come back in the second half. Like, these are the kinds of things that could have connected the first half to the second half. Which, I mean, I guess some people appreciate that, but I don't really, honestly. I don't like that total flip-flop. Where they just drop everything from the first half. They could have had this particular FBI guy catch up with them and be the one at the very end to open up the building.
And it's interesting that you say that, because every kind of, just every observation that you're making, every kind of turn that you wish they would have taken is done in the series.
Okay. I wonder why they didn't think of that in the first place, and then they really wanted to.
It seems pretty obvious now that to have that kind of antagonist.
They could have done things also when they're getting closer to the border. They could have done things to set up the Titty Twister.
What do you mean?
How come we're not just like casually seeing an insert shot of like maybe a poster for the Titty Twister, like an advertisement for it that looks sinister?
As you're crossing the border, maybe? Yeah.
When you're driving down the road.
Yeah, keep in mind that Titty Twister is there to attract bikers and truckers and mean motherfuckers.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's going in
mean motor scooters, you mean.
Mean motor scooters, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's there. So you're going to want to see things like, half-naked women on billboards. I mean, you see them everywhere else in the United States, at least.
Mm-hmm. But everybody that's at the Titty Twister just kind of is in the know.
Right. Right. The rest of the page is the Fuller family arriving at the Dewdrop Inn, where they run into Seth.
Yeah,
and just like the movie, almost actually literally running into Seth. Screeching on the brakes there.
Screeching on the brakes. The only difference is that this scene in the comic takes place in the nighttime, and in the movie it took place in the daytime. I feel like you don't want to show too much night before you get to the Titty Twister.
And that wasn't a creative choice.
You don't want a bunch of scenes taking place at night.
Yeah. There's a lot that takes place at night
in the comic.
Several pages.
It's easier to just do a nighttime black background.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That really saves some time. Even the profile there on the next page of Seth in the headlights, you've got just, two colors? Yellow?
Mm-hmm.
Well, 3 colors. Yellow, black, and white. But,
right.
That it's that airbrushing, so I'm assuming that's how it's easier to airbrush than it is to put a lot more detail in it if it was daytime.
Yeah. So Seth is just like wandering around thinking to himself about how they can get across the border, and the opportunity literally presents itself. Literally almost runs him over.
Runs him over, yeah.
Because he sees this RV and immediately is like, I've got it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is a very
how do you know he's got
very
it?
Like obvious I got an idea picture drawing of him here.
What's that that statue's like
the thinker?
The thinker, yeah, he's got that
thinking man
pose.
or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of got his fist on his chin. It's like a
yeah. And then
anyway.
an abrupt change of scenery there. In the next panel, we're inside of the Fuller's hotel room, which if you take a look at the background, look at that mirror compared to the mirror that we saw in the set in the Gecko Brothers room,
which is broken,
broken.
You wonder, like, is it broken because Richie's a psychopath and just like punched it, or is it broken because they're in a seedy motel?
Yeah,
maybe a little of both. So the Fullers, they're in their room just after Seth sees them pull up in that RV.
Mm-hmm.
The Fullers, you hear a knock, knock, knock on the door.
Knock, knock, knock. Richie's at the door.
And they're in a scary, seedy motel. And they hear a random knocking on the door in the middle of the night. So what the father does is sends his son to answer the door.
You want to get that?
Yeah.
And the son is sitting there with the headphones on.
Yeah, he doesn't get it.
Yeah, and
but he almost did.
He almost did. And then
I'd be like, no, son, let me get this.
Yeah. And then Jacob answers the door, and we see that it's Richie asking for the ice bucket. And
he uses this ruse to ask for an ice bucket, and then puts a gun in his face real quick. I don't know why they needed that ice bucket ruse. They could have just had the guns out when they opened the door, and everything would have played out just the same. But
yeah, Seth walks in with a gun to their face, and this is taken right out of the film.
Yeah, and they're getting the whole family here, and then
Kate.
She's getting back from the pool, so now they got the whole family here at gunpoint.
Right. Seth tells her, "You Gidget, get in the bathroom and put your clothes on." And that really looks like Harvey Keitel. At this point, it hadn't, but that last panel, to me, it does. But again, this is Harvey Keitel based off of, his other most recent appearance in a movie, and not the bearded, hat-wearing Harvey Keitel we see in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, at least he's got that white shirt on, so you could always tell them apart. Almost always.
So Kate... I fucking forgot his goddamn name. What was the name of the kid? Scott.
Yeah, Scott.
Kate, Scott, and...
He's so forgettable,
Richie.
Scott.
He is.
Why?
I don't know.
He has as many lines as everyone else, and...
They expand on him in the series, though, by a lot.
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah, he has a cool little arc there. It's really fucking badass. But anyway, Kate Scott and Richie are in the back of the RV. Jacob is driving, and Seth is in the passenger seat. Kate is asking Richie, where are you taking us? That's when he
Mexico.
Mexico. What's in Mexico?
Mexicans. I love that.
Yeah. And then Seth kind of catches up to who these people are by going through Jacob's wallet. And he sees the minister's license, so we find out. This is where he finds out, that Jacob is a mean motherfucking servant of God.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Real McCoy.
So Seth is basically telling Jacob to be cool, while Richie's in the back.
Do you know what the difference between a preacher and a minister is?
No,
I don't.
Yeah.
Is there a difference?
I'm sure there is.
I guess there is. Oh well. He's a minister, though. Get it clear. He's not a preacher.
Yeah.
Different.
So Seth at this point points out to Jacob that asked him if he's noticed that Richie's had his eye on Kate. But if they cross the border successfully, that they'll be on their way, and that there's nothing for them to worry about.
They get, they do away with a lot of Richie's sexual deviance.
All of it.
Well, they get it in here a little bit with this line, like, I noticed he's been
got his
eyeing your daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, but that could mean anything. That could be as in she's going to be the first to get shot if something goes wrong.
I guess you're right. Maybe I'm only carrying over what I know from the movie into this comic. But yeah,
that brings up a good point. Is that what is going to happen naturally when we talk about comic adaptations?
Yeah. Probably.
Is there going to be a situation where we are going to read an adaptation before seeing a movie?
Definitely. I've never seen Zardoz.
Okay.
There's a comic. We're talking about that at some point. I've never seen the musical Annie.
Me neither.
That's a Marvel super special.
Yeah.
We'll likely talk about that, and we're going to be watching these movies too. So yes, this will happen. This will happen a lot.
So it's showtime at this point. Jacob's still driving. They're arriving into El Paso. And the comic here in the panel, we're approaching in the desert with the mountains. I don't know if this is a checkpoint or if this is the border. But they're in the RV. What ends up happening is that Seth and Jacob take Kate at gunpoint to hide in the RV's restroom.
So this character in the movie is played by Cheech Marin.
By Cheech Marin.
The first appearance of Cheech Marin in this movie as one of the three characters he plays. They must have not known about that here, obviously, because this officer is not drawn to look like Cheech.
No. Yeah, so Jacob's in the passenger seat after Seth and Richie take Kate at gunpoint into the restroom. Jacob tries to threaten Seth at this point, if anything happens to her, blah, blah, blah. But it's showtime. So, shit's gonna go down if it needs to. The policeman at this point.
Yeah, well, he tells them, he warns them. The only thing you need to be convinced about is that you're stuck in a situation with a couple of real mean motor scooters.
There's that line again. That's going to haunt us throughout this episode.
It will.
All right, so
he's saying this could get serious, Jacob.
Yeah, and he says, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So the cop approaches the window with a shotgun in hand, asks how many people are there, and Jacob mentions, it's just me and my son. You hear a thump while the cop is asking, what's your purpose in Mexico? Jacob says, I'm on vacation. But the cop says, what's that? And Jacob mentions, it's my daughter. She's in the bathroom. Well, you said it was just you and your boy. Open up, coming aboard. And we get that awesome shot there of Kate, Seth, and Richie in that restroom.
Yeah, all crammed into this restroom. They're trying to keep her quiet. So yeah, the officer knocks on the door. Says, Border Patrol, ma'am, open up.
Yeah,
I guess it is the Border Patrol.
I
guess
it wasn't. It was something that slipped behind the cracks at editorial. But take a look at these panels too. They start shuffling all over the place. I guess to give that sense of anxiety.
Is that the first time they've done that so far in this book?
Yeah, they've had different size
offset panel.
Yeah, they've had different size panels, but none of them have been offset until this point.
I guess they do that so you feel like the camera's up in the corner of this little small room.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of helps that.
That claustrophobia.
Helps that cramped claustrophobic feeling.
Yeah.
But they open up and they've quickly got her now on the toilet like she's going to the bathroom. And she says, shut the fucking door. I'm going to the bathroom, do you mind? And of course the cop's going to be like, oh, sorry, ma'am, sorry. Seth and Richie are hiding in the shower behind the shower curtain.
Yeah. Yeah. The cop apologizes. Look at that.
Yeah, that does it.
When does that ever happen? But anyway, the cop apologizes for the hold up there, explains that they're on a manhunt. They're, and they're just being cautious. Jacob says apology accepted, and they're off into what we assume is Mexico. Now, they've said Border Patrol, but we've also seen the police, the cars are labeled as being police cars. Mm-hmm. So I'm still confused. Is this a police checkpoint, or is this the U.S.-Mexico border?
It is a little confusing. And I like their celebration, after they got through all this. That was intense. Fucking magnificent, little darling. I kind of feel like this is a kind of a bonding moment.
Yeah, it definitely is.
For the family and the geckos.
That makes sense.
In a little way. In a sick, weird, like, what's that where the
Stockholm Syndrome?
Stockholm Syndrome. In a Stockholm Syndrome kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is
if I was a bit younger, I'd fucking marry you. How much of a bit younger? You mean like a lot younger, right?
Yeah. Anything else before we get into the second part of the comic?
I don't think so. This is all cleared up, and they're in Mexico now, and this whole thing's gonna change.
Right. And it does change. Even the layout of the comic changes. You're still going to have... It's kind of an ununiform number of panels in the next couple of pages. But this is the first time we're seeing those panel gutters being black instead of what was, the first half of the comic was all white. And again, we're talking about the spaces in between the different panels, kind of sort of like the border around the panels, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But the gang arrives at the Titty Twister. There are some details in this page. Check out those trucks.
Titty Twister. Also a good Tarantino name.
Yeah.
I like his signage also.
What, like the big neon?
Yeah, the big neon signs. Fun stuff.
Yeah. But check out the outside. It totally looks like a temple. What kind of bricks are those?
It really does. Or it just looks like maybe... Yeah. No, it looks like a hellscape from the outside even.
Oh, it totally does. There are flames everywhere, and the shape of the entrance, the doorway, looks very castle-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. Seth...
It looks like a evil church.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. But very nice page overall, the way it's laid out, the detail, even cross-hatching, the coloring is good.
Mm-hmm. I like the little insert panel at the top where you see the inside looking out of the van as they're pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of neat. So, yeah, all these trucks, it's a trucker bar.
So we're, again, in the exterior. Seth is reminding everybody to be cool. The plan is to wait for Carlos. And what's really came out to me was that there's no objection from Jacob at all.
No, none of it.
Nothing. He's just kind of quiet in the background. I think the only thing that he says is... out of the stew pot and into the fire. He's totally going along with it.
I would have stayed in the goddamn camper.
Yeah. It's an RV.
Take my keys. I won't go anywhere. I promise. I'm just not going in that place with my kids.
But they know just from the outside of the building with the hellscape that it looks like. Even Richie calls out here, "Holy shit, Seth! I've been to a lot of fucked up places before, but this place is really fucked up."
So they see the collar out front.
Mm-hmm.
Like the carnival barker guy.
Yeah, this is where the pussy speech comes into play.
Attention, pussy shoppers! Take advantage of our penny pussy sale! If you buy one piece of pussy at the regular price, you will get another piece of pussy of equal or lesser value for only a penny!
the Pussy speech, Chet Pussy, and this is supposed to be, again, the second appearance of Cheech. And
yeah, I don't know if they didn't include that because it was so gratuitous or because it wasn't included in the original screenplay.
That's a good question, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think it's because it was so gratuitous, and that speech is so long it would have taken 3 or 4 panels.
That's true too. Yeah.
And I think it was just they're trying to condense the story and trying to move along, and it's just a little flair that's not important.
Yeah,
really.
Overall,
and it sounds good coming from Cheech Marin.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
It doesn't read as good. Cheech makes it sound good.
He does.
But if you were just reading it right here, and the character that you're seeing standing in front of the door with this bullhorn saying "pussy, pussy, pussy," hardly even looks like a human the way they've rendered this.
Not until you get to the next page.
This silhouette character.
Right.
It's real weird, and maybe that's because they didn't know who was going to be in that part, but they didn't know who was going to be in a lot of these parts. So
the cop still ended up looking like a cop, or even
I don't know why they didn't
on the
just
next
draw
page.
in a face on this thing. It's like they forgot almost.
Yeah,
it's like this is a placeholder, and they forgot.
Well, a 4-week turnaround time where most of that time was spent just on the writing itself.
Hot damn!
Doesn't leave a lot for details. I'm surprised we got the amount of details we do in most of these pages.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Well, that next page does cut into a closer view of the Cheech character, the Chet Pussy character.
Yeah,
that
and
looks
now
like
he
Danny
looks like
Trejo.
a character that belongs at this bar.
Oh, totally. Biker
and
dude
stuff.
with black hair and a goatee and a vest and some plants.
Yep. Yeah, a little skull necklace.
Yeah, he does
Pretty
try.
tough necklaces.
He does try to stop Seth from going into the bar just by pointing his finger into his chest. It says, "Just a minute here," or what does he say? "Just a minute, slick."
Slick.
Yeah, and you see a little snap on there as Seth grabs his finger, twists it out, headbutts him in the face, and Chet Pussy falls back, bleeding onto the floor, and the gang walks right by.
Out of my way, dick, Seth says.
And now we're inside. We're inside the titty twister itself.
Yeah, and it's they do the bar well. I mean, again, like going off of a script.
Yeah,
they get pretty damn close to what this bar ended up looking like what that set looked like. So they must have had notes in the script.
They had
on themes and decor and what they were thinking this bar was going to look like.
Yeah,
they must have, because they're so close with all these like Aztec-like designs and the color scheme, and
there's faces on the walls.
Yeah. They did it pretty good.
Yeah. Well, the gang finds a seat inside.
I just noticed, like, this top panel, this is actually someone fucking here, is it? Yeah, I see like this girl riding this big hairy fucking man thigh here.
There's a leg.
Anyway, or he's just getting like one hell of a lap dance where he also took his pants off for it.
We don't, and from here you don't know who's saying things because the details on faces of the gang when they sit down at a table is just completely gone.
I mean, you could kind of glean from the dialogue, but...
Yeah. But this is the introduction of Satanico Pandemonium.
Satanico Pandemonium. There she is with her snake.
There's the snake.
They couldn't possibly render this comic character like as hot as Salma Hayek is in real life.
Definitely not.
This does not do her face justice.
Take a look at the fans of the dance in the background. This one guy says, "Light my fire, bitch."
That's the kind of place we're in here.
Yeah. But you do see some like fire added to that bottom panel there again with the computer coloring. It looks good.
Yeah, and the fiery onomatopoeia saying whoosh as she's kind of like blowing it out, and it sort of is drawing it into the fire. I like that.
Yeah. Well, the dance continues there, and they actually included the foot scene.
That must have been written into the script
then,
right? Like, this was Tarantino's...
Well, he knew exactly what he was doing from the
Might have been what he wrote the whole script around.
Uh-huh.
So do you think that he had this written, like... Remember, Madonna was originally thought for this role. Was she going to do the foot thing also?
Looks like it. Yeah, even the bottle of tequila that's poured down the leg is there.
Seems like it'd be hard to write a dance like that.
Well, he did it.
But it plays out a lot like in the movie.
Yes, it does. All right, so the dance is over.
Even with the motorboating and everything.
Yeah, Richie gets his motorboat on. But they're interrupted by the Cheech character and his crew, and they stab Richie in his taped hand.
Yeah, he's come back for revenge.
Yeah. Seth shoots one of them through the neck, and Richie pulls a knife from his hand and stabs the other dude. So of course, seeing that blood, Satanico pouts up her face into that vampire form and bites Richie's neck, killing him. This is the first vampire face we're seeing in this comic. They're really very bat-like, with pointed ears, and upturned nose, claws, and of course the fangs.
Yeah, they make a massive transformation.
Yeah.
I'd say in the movie, however, I feel like she ends up looking more snake-like.
Yeah, definitely.
In the comic, it's more of a generic bat monster vampire face that almost all of them have. It's not as varied here.
No, it's not. What do you think about that blood effect there?
Yeah, it looks great. It looks real gory. I mean, it's
not
trying to look a little thick, kind of, but
yeah, it's not as detailed as that splash page. It doesn't look as neat as it does in the splash page, but
it's not as splattery. It's more like jelly.
Yeah, but there's definitely a contrast between the color of the blood and the backgrounds.
Yeah, so like you were saying about the change in the gutter colors, like we go from day, and then once we get into Titty Twister, most of the gutters are black.
Mm-hmm.
Except for this panel where,
the page.
Yeah, the whole page. Right, where Richie's being attacked, or Seth is being attacked. Which one's being attacked?
That's Richie.
Okay. Dude, they're kind of hard to tell apart.
They're very hard, yeah.
It's very hard. They should have done something to do... I mean, of course, in the movie they're both dressed very similarly. They should have, accentuated... They knew Tarantino was going to be in this part, so they should have, accentuated some of his facial features a little more.
Which they did.
Like his big old chin or something. Give him a big old chin.
He's got
big
that
old Tarantino
jawline.
chin.
Yeah.
He looks like the fucking Moon Man from old McDonald's commercials.
Yeah.
In life. Yeah. You could have brought out some of those features a little more.
Which they did earlier in the comic, but not here.
It gets real blurry.
Very,
Yeah. But you could tell because the one giveaway is that Richie's got a collared shirt. If you're looking close enough, if there's a white collared shirt, it's Richie. Mm-hmm. If it's like a cutout scoop neck, it's Seth.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
that would have helped me.
So
earlier.
Richie is getting bit. Richie is getting bit here by this vampire, and we're seeing it's kind of against a white background. Why do you think they did that?
To bring focus on the action.
It seems like they chose a theme here.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been as impactful if they left the brick print in the background. Plus, that's a lot of work. I mean, even though it's just lines.
It draws the eye. I mean, as soon as your eye comes to this page, your eye is drawn right to that center action.
Right to that action, yeah. And it's right at the center of the page too. The point where the fangs go into Richie's neck is the center of the page.
And at the top there are 3 panels, and those panels are sort of angled in, as if they're sort of pointing down at the center action.
That really
which helps draw your eye in even more. I like the layout on this page a lot.
That's experience. That's Trevor Von Eden.
Yeah, he knows how to get the momentum of a story going just by layouts.
Yeah.
And where your eye is going.
Yeah, because in the next page you don't see that when the other stripper vamps are locking down the bar.
And they ring the gong and they shut all the gates and they're like, dinner is served.
Yeah,
and all hell breaks loose. I like this panel a lot too. I mean, it's like fucking mayhem, and you even see the little band, the bar band down in the corner playing.
I never saw that. Yeah.
See them down there?
Yeah.
They don't have human-made instruments, and they're still playing. The mayhem's going on, and they're rocking out all the while.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And the whole bar erupts in vampires and mayhem, and it's like they do this. It's like they do this all the time, and I don't understand it at all. It just doesn't seem like something you could maintain.
Yeah.
So the logistics of how this bar operates is beyond me. What do you think? Because, clearly most of the bar are in on this. They're all vampires and they all need to feed, right?
Right.
How frequently do you think they need to feed? Does this happen nightly? Weekly? Is it an annual thing, like once a year? Is this some kind of...
Every full moon? There's no indication there.
Nothing like that. Yeah, a full moon, that's more of a werewolf thing, you know? So, no, it's a werewolf thing.
Yeah,
it's not a vampire
werewolf
thing.
laws.
Yeah, that's werewolf rules.
Werewolf rules.
Lycan rules. So, let's just say for argument's sake, they do this nightly. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say weekly.
You know, I think that adds to the mystery of the entire place. Like, you know, that last scene with the temple.
Yep.
You know, you're lost. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what just happened, and that, you know, that mystery just kind of adds to the movie experience. And
no, I don't think it's a mystery box or anything. I think that it's just not logical.
Right.
Let's say they do this, weekly. It's every Friday night. Friday night special is blood and gore. And a bunch of truckers show up, and they're none the wiser, right? Because none of these people have any idea that this is going to happen. So this happens weekly. Nobody has ever survived this, right?
No.
Is that what I'm to believe? Like, because if someone had survived it, you'd hear word of this kind of shit. The word would get out, right? The ruse would be up.
And
once they kill all the truckers, what do they do with all them trucks?
Yeah.
More trucks are going to show up.
But don't they show at the end that last
scene? And then
scene?
the whole bar is fucking wrecked. Do they rebuild this shit? Like, rebuild all the tables? Is it this much of a struggle for these vampires every time? Is it that big of a fight for them, you know?
Yeah.
Where they're breaking all the furniture and stuff's lighting on fire, you know?
Blood everywhere.
Does the bar get that destroyed in the melee like every fucking week or something? And if so, who's going back and rebuilding all those bar stools? And like resetting the bar and shit for the next night, you know?
Yeah. And again, here's spoilers for the TV show. They address this in the TV show.
Okay.
Everything that you've been wondering about the lore, about the mythology, about just the kind of character motivations, they go into it in the 6 episodes that I saw of season 1.
Again, like, not even so much lore, just logistics.
Logistics.
Is what I'm talking about. None of them have ever been killed as vampires before, you know? Like, this is the first time that the humans in this trap have overtaken the vampires.
Well,
and
I don't know.
All it took was Seth and Richie Gecko.
Take a look at these panels with Sex Machine, though. He easily takes out one of those vampires, and it makes sense that a bunch of bad motor scooters that are going to be in this bar can take
every single time. Every single time. It's a biker trucker bar.
Yeah.
You're going to have these kinds of people as patrons all the time. And nobody has stood up to these vampires before.
Yeah.
I guess not. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Do they have to turn into monsters to feed on blood? Or is that just for effect?
Right.
Is that a scare tactic?
Do they
like
the fridge?
They must enjoy the fight, you know, because again, I always go back to like the band keeps playing, right? And they're still having a good time.
Yeah.
That band is always playing. Like, it's just how their regular night goes. It's like...
Do they have multiple vampire bands that they can rotate?
I don't know. I don't know how this place works.
And people turn very easily, too. Do they get tired? These truckers get tired of seeing the same band over and over again?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, for a millennia. Also, how long has this place been here, you know?
Yeah.
Have they had to update the bar to fit the times? Or is it just like a timeless bar? I don't know. It's something that they could have done to connect another thing they could have done to connect the first half to the second half. Like, they could have run across on their journey out some quote-unquote crazy guy who's going on and on about the horrors at the Titty Twister, and they sort of just pass it off. Mm-hmm. Like, who's the fellow in the beginning of Friday the 13th, you know? You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you? You know?
Oh,
crazy,
yeah.
Crazy Larry or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Going to Camp Blood. That guy.
Yeah.
They should have had one of those, what do they call that kind of character? A doomsayer.
Oh, the doomsayer, yeah.
They should have had that doomsayer in the beginning who has experienced this and lived through it.
Yeah.
And he's one of the few, you know. Whatever. They didn't do that.
So use,
and the first half is so just disjointed from the second half, even in the comic.
More tropes, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But what this movie's full of tropes.
Well, yeah, it's true.
It's built on tropes.
It's built on tropes, yeah.
So, Anyway,
yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure I'll never understand the logistics of this vampire bar.
So dinner is served at this point. Take a look at those vampire word balloons, like Ghost Rider, you know, very jagged.
The style of the dinner balloon, you could hear like the hissing in their voice coming out of it.
Yeah.
Just because of how you're looking at how these word balloons are drawn.
Mm-hmm. This is the introduction of Sex Machine, though. And take a look at those wrist cuffs and everything. Like, the outfit is there. The look is there. I don't know if Tom Savini had always been eyed for this role, even while the screenplay was being written, or what early version of the screenplay did Polygardy and the other creators get their hands on.
Yeah, that's a good question.
But that's spot on.
I think Savini went out for this role on his own accord. Like, I think he wanted it. And auditioned for it.
Oh, he auditioned.
I'm pretty sure.
Wow. Well, yeah. Either way, they got the look down.
Mm-hmm. You know, Savini. You know, he always wanted to be an actor in the first place. Before he ever was doing makeup. He actually got into makeup because he was an actor in like a summer stock troupe. And, you know, they needed stage makeup done. So he ended up falling into that place and then became like the go-to guy for like their little theater in Philadelphia or wherever he's from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he learned how to do makeup, is for theater.
Wow.
So he's always had the passion, and he still does, for acting.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So the next page here, we've got Seth shooting at these vampires. He's pinned down. Sex Machine comes to the rescue, and that's when he joins the gang.
They got a band together.
Yeah.
And Sex Machine's the only one who knows what's going on here. We'll find out in a little bit.
Yeah. Frost is introduced next, the Fred Williamson character, tackling a vampire. How do we know that's a vampire? Well, it's the word balloon's all jagged. Who's that? Jacob beating the vampire that Frost had tackled?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's that white shirt guy. I mean, that's how I recognize Jacobs, because he got the white shirt on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it must be.
But he says, "Wait, that won't do shit." And then Sex Machine comes in and says, "But this will." And the stake through the heart. The vampire in the final panel of that page, we've got the gang looking at the vampire melting and on fire.
And it's a real neat panel.
Yeah.
I just like the gore and the fire effect. And they're standing around watching it, like, very nonplussed in their face. They just don't have any kind of reaction. They're just sort of like, that's a thing.
And while the gang is distracted by the fire, the Chet Pussy character lifts Kate, who is hiding behind the bar with Scott, lifts her up with one hand. Kate snaps off her necklace, shoves it into Chet Pussy's...
Cross necklace.
Oh, the cross necklace, yeah.
That's
shoves
important.
it into his mouth. And Scott, with a big smile, slaps the vampire in the back where he swallows the cross.
That's kind of a funny
moment.
On
fire.
It's funny. They really carry over that comedy in this panel, I think.
The backslap? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the gulp.
Totally.
Especially the gulp sound effect.
Yeah. He
Not even sound effect. He's literally, it's in a word balloon. He's saying gulp.
Oh, yeah. He did say it. Yeah. It's a sound that comes out of his mouth. Either way, the last three panels on the page is the character bursting into flames with his eyes popping out there. And that was in the movie, too, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, that's how he's dispatched in the movies.
It's in the
and the eyes, you could hear them pop because they go, put.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Next,
and it's more mayhem next.
Yeah, the stripper vamps up against
the stripper vamps.
The gang. I'm gonna call them our heroes.
Yeah, I like how they're all impaled on legs of a upturned table.
Yeah.
I think that's in the movie as well, in a nice long shot. I think.
Yeah.
I think in some aftermath of the first melee.
Yep. The bottom panels are where we're actually getting some conversation now, so exposition comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's confused about what's going on and who they're fighting and if they can escape somehow, and they realize that they have to fight and kind of come up with the fact that these are movie vampire rules.
Yeah, well, Seth Gecko's onto it pretty quick. Like, he sees it happen, he knows what's going on. What the fuck does it look like, preacher? We're dealing with fucking vampires.
Right. We're getting nudity here too, more than just an ass shot in this page.
Yeah, you're right. There's some full on nipple right there.
There's nipple. Yeah. So let's see here. Peter Cushing. He's right. Peter Cushing does that all the time.
I love that in this movie, how they interject the idea that these characters also watch movies that we have seen.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think was sort of a new storytelling device in this era.
Yeah,
of movies.
You're kind of in the real world.
Yeah, where movies were like self-aware, became self-aware.
That's a Tarantino thing, yeah.
A Tarantino thing, and I credit Kevin Smith in a big way.
Yeah.
Before like Clerks, which was around this same time. All these guys were going to the same fucking indie festival circuits.
Yeah.
In the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they all grew up watching movies.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, they're going to start injecting movie knowledge into the movies they're writing. And it's amazing that no one thought of that before the early 90s,
Yeah.
But yeah, they know what's going on, or at least a couple of these characters do, because they watch the same movies that I watch.
So as they figure out that it's vampire rules, Seth realizes, wait a minute, you're a preacher, Jacob. At least you used to be. Right?
Seems like it could go somewhere, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
He has no divine power or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I guess it just gives him confidence.
And he's giving him a lot of confidence here, because how many times does he tell him something about being a holy roller, a mean motherfucking servant of God, which was in the script.
But he's also downplaying it at the same time. You're a holy roller, aren't you? Like, that's sort of like diminishing at the same time.
You're right. So then they hear what they equate to clawing and scratching at the building. Other things trying to come in.
Sounds like birds, like rats.
Yeah, more of a gnawing sound, like rats.
What's next? They got to keep throwing stuff at you, because again, I mean, the movie at least, K&B was trying to show you all of their tricks.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to keep introducing new stuff, and it comes at a breakneck speed in the movie and in this comic.
Yeah, especially because we're running out of pages at this point in the comic. But Richie wakes up from being a vampire. You see, Richie is now a vampire because he's got fangs on there. He's saying, "Help me, Seth," but in that vampire word balloon.
He's got those veins in his eyes.
Yeah.
You only get that when you turn into a vampire.
Yeah. Seth stops Sex Machine from staking him. He's gonna stake him with what looks like a broken piece of wood.
Mm-hmm.
And Seth points a gun to Sex Machine's head. Says, "You touch my brother, biker, and vampires won't need to suck the blood. They'll be able to lick it off the floor."
That's hardcore.
Yeah.
He ain't your brother no more, Sex Machine says.
Yeah.
And he's right.
So Seth has everybody hold Richie down, and he kills him with that stake through the heart.
Yeah, and you get the line like, "I'm sorry, Richie, I hope you'll find peace in death."
Oh, yeah.
And I don't feel like that line was earned.
No.
I guess they're both criminals, and that's enough to, like, be an example of how damaged they are, or they seem to love being criminals.
Yeah.
Is the thing. Like, what?
Yeah, he reveled in it. Richie a little bit more than Seth, but
anyway,
yeah. Either way,
it would have been more impactful if they had included, like we had said, some of those more harsh scenes from the first half of the movie, in the comic,
right? Well, it looks like the vampire bats came in because there's obviously one. Looks like a big, huge bat with like a 6-foot wingspan.
Yeah.
Bats come flying in, and as the band is swatting at him with these stakes, the vampires start to rise. New vampires start to rise from all the bikers and the truckers that were bit during the original bites.
So, okay, this goes back to logistics.
Yeah.
If these guys returned and they weren't dispatched by our little band of heroes here, would they then live in the temple?
Right. It seems that
like
way.
After this night, what happens to them as new trucker vampires?
Well, that's why I said, don't they get if this does happen on a regular basis, don't they get tired of seeing the same band playing too?
Okay, so they take these truckers and they give them some instruments and teach them how to play and make them become the new rock band. That must be what they do with them.
Right.
I don't know. Or they just go off and try to continue their life as truckers. But they're also vampires and they need to feed.
So they can only travel at night.
Vampire convoy. Anyway.
But they're probably carrying expensive cargo too, and
someone's going to come looking for that.
No shit.
They're going to wonder where all these fucking trucks are.
If I don't get a package in the mail that I'm expecting, which I'm constantly checking using the tracking numbers, I go crazy. I start calling the post office. I want to speak to the postmaster general himself.
Yeah.
So you think that somebody go looking for expensive cargo?
This was the mid-90s, and we didn't all have GPS units in our cars.
Yeah.
But truck sure as fuck did.
Yeah.
They know where these things are. I mean, anyway, fuck.
Yeah.
That's a deep hole we could go down.
Enough of the rabbit hole there.
Of course, we're not complaining about the logistics of actual vampires, but
yeah. Well, I mean, take a look at what happens next. So a sex machine gets bitten, just like he does in the movie. He kills that vampire, but he understands that he's going to turn eventually, and he turns immediately, almost.
He sure does.
One bite.
Yeah.
So as the rest of the gang is trying to escape off of a back room that they found somehow.
And this is another scene with Sex Machine that the comedy just gets completely lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the movie, it's hilarious. It's one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie is when Sex Machine is trying to hide his change,
Mm-hmm.
And he even gets the Ash Evil Dead hand for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's playing with his hand, where his hand is out of his control.
Too.
And plays with the fangs and mugs for the camera a bunch. And it's great in the movie, and they don't do it any justice here in the comic. They didn't even try.
Right.
Maybe they didn't know that scene, like we keep saying, so much of this stuff on set was improvised.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't know, but...
Yeah. Well, the gang is leaving, the main area, going into a back room, but Jacob is left behind because he is swarmed by vampire bats.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They shut the door on him, and this is where Sex Machine turns. Jacob, out there, who knows what's happening to him, but Seth realizes that he's been bit, and, he completely turns there. Frost tackles him or pushes him into... broken wood or a bunch of wood that does break and impales Sex Machine.
It's like a shelf that's all broken up or some kind of stretcher rack. What is it?
I have no idea. But Sex Machine bites Frost at that point, and then Seth pushes them both into the broken wood, and they're both impaled.
Which does away with Frost right away. It doesn't happen like that in the movie.
Oh, no.
Frost has a big scene where he turns into this giant bestial vampire with this big unhinged jaw that opens up, into this giant vampire mouth. And doesn't he call in the bats or something into the building?
Yeah, that's when they all swarm in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
it's done. So those two characters are out of the way. They're dead. They're just kind of hanging bodies. from that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they hear a rapping on the door. Of all things to put on there as the onomatopoeia, it's rap, rap, rap.
Rap, 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 rap.
Yeah. Kate wants to open the door right away. She understands that it's her father. She exclaims, "Daddy."
Maybe they have a secret family knock.
Yeah.
That goes rap, rap, rap.
Maybe.
But Daddy.
He yells at his kids, "Come on, kids, I don't have all day." And they open the door, let him in. He's making the sign of the cross there with 2 pieces of broken wood. And it's working.
And they know that he's bit. That's fucking fabulous, preacher. Just goddamn great. But it's too goddamn late for absolution. You've fucking been poisoned.
Yeah. The kids stand between Seth and Jacob. Get away from you, psycho. You touch him and you're dead meat. While Kate's, just consoling her father, I guess.
But they know he's going to be turned because he got bit by one of those bat monsters.
The bat monsters, yeah. But he doesn't turn immediately.
They're just assuming that a bat monster will also change you.
Yeah. He doesn't turn immediately, though. He makes the kids promise, just like the movie, makes them promise to kill him when the time comes. And they start looking for weapons in the back room that they're in.
Mm-hmm. They start making weapons. Or they start modifying weapons.
Yeah. But the only indication that you have that they're modifying weapons is that next page when Seth Gecko is holding that, what was that, like a jackhammer with a wooden stake at the end?
Yeah, it's something like that, I guess.
He's got in his hands. Other than that, Jacob's got a
you're
gun.
right. They put more emphasis on that in the movie.
Yeah.
Where, aren't they etching little crosses into bullets and stuff?
Yeah, Juliette Lewis finds the crossbow, and they fill the condoms with water that Jacob blesses.
That's right, holy water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some divine power.
Yeah.
He can bless water and make holy water.
Yeah, and they realize that, and I think they realize that in the comic too when Jacob is holding up that cross, the wooden cross that he, is holding. And they mention here, so tell me again, you bless the tap water in the Uzi squirt gun and your water balloons. Just how do you expect us to use that 45 against a vampire? Yeah. So they've talked about using what they have available to them. And look at what does they call those? Like a bandolier on Scott's waist and over across his chest?
Yeah, full of condoms.
Yeah.
Filled holy water condoms.
Yeah. The gang opens the door and immediately start killing these. These are more like wolf creatures than anything else.
Yeah, you're right. They're hairy.
We've seen 4 different vampires at this point.
We've
arched
got backs.
Yeah. We've got the vampire bats, the stripper vampires, the Selma Hayek snake-like vampire, and then now we've got these kind of wolf vampire things that are coming at the gang is charging against.
There's a lot, but they still couldn't possibly cram in all the stuff that they crammed into that movie.
Oh, heck no, yeah. Jacob is being overrun by those big vampire bat creatures again, and the gang is fighting off as best they could.
Yeah, he's done for.
But he's done for. And then he feels that the change is coming. So he turns to Kate, asks him to kill him before he's completely possessed, and she says, "I can't do it." Seth is busy fighting off vampire bats himself, telling her to use the gun. Instead, she shoots the vampire bat that's overwhelming Seth.
Yeah.
Scott is being chewed on at that point. Kate turns to him, starts killing those vampires.
He turns pretty fast too. And it's pretty inconsistent with
timing of turn. Yeah. And there's a 5th type of vampire, the monkey vampire there, because it looks like he's covered in hair or something. That cross-hatching is weird.
It's supposed to be motion lines, I think. Lines. But what it ends up looking like is hair. And what with his face and the protrusion of the mouth, the muzzle kind of, makes it look very monkey-like.
It does. But for some reason the gun works on him. Takes him down.
I do not remember it being that way in the movie.
No.
He doesn't look like a monkey, by the way, in the movie.
No.
He looks like a bat vampire.
Yeah. So
with blue hair.
Yeah. Kate has to put down Scott. Behind him, you see a shadow, and the shadow turns out to be Jacob. Vampire Jacob.
Oh, yeah, I never noticed that shadow. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, they're even saying Kate behind you. I guess I didn't look, but...
So, Vampire Jacob pins Kate up against a wall, but Seth notices the sun is peeking through cracks, I guess, in the wood that's I don't know, barring everything.
And again, he's referencing movies.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look, the sunlight's coming in. They're afraid of it, just like the movies.
And then there's a knock on the door.
Yeah.
And Carlos very politely, I'm looking for my friend. Is Seth Gecko in there?
Seth Gecko? Anybody?
I'm sure they're
Seth?
screaming. There's kind of
Anyone
monster screeching going on. And he's like, does anybody know Seth Gecko in here?
Yeah, right. As if you could hear anything through those giant wooden doors.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, there's more sunlight beams for some reason. It hits Jacob. The light hits Jacob. Seth pins him down against that light and says, keep holding him down. Carlos, bash the door. Do it. Carlos then gives instructions to Danny and Manny. Knock the door down. Vamonos.
Danny and Manny.
The door bursts open. All the vampires burst into flames, and the whole building goes up. So the gang runs out. Well, what's left of the gang at this point is just Kate and Seth run out with Carlos and Danny and Manny. Seth punches Carlos, which is not Cheech Marin. Punches him in the face.
Not at all. It is Cheech Marin in the movie, though. Carlos, yeah.
He turns to Carlos, punches him in the face, says, "Of all the goddamn shitholes in Mexico, why'd you pick this one?" He turns to Kate before even looking for an answer, which he does get in the movie. But he turns to Kate and asks her, "Are you all right? Go to the Winnebago and get my suitcase. Like, fetch."
Yeah. Also, she says, "I'm fine."
I'm fine, yeah.
I don't think she's fine. Maybe physically, if that's what she means.
Yeah.
But this girl's gonna be messed the fuck up for the rest of her life.
Oh, definitely. So, Seth gets the suitcase that's supposed to be full of money there. Carlos talks about his mother telling him stories about Mexican vampiros when he was a little kid.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So, Seth begins trying to, try to get him down from 30% for the trip to El Rey down to 15%. They negotiate a little bit there.
He's still concerned with his deal.
Yeah, he's
Isn't
still
that
concerned
funny
with the
after
deal.
all this?
Seth brings up the fact that his brother is dead now, and it's all his fault. And they agree to 25% 25.
I think Seth is a little relieved that he doesn't have his brother to deal with anymore. I'm guessing.
It seems like that, because he just kind of drops it right away.
The biggest problem Seth ever had was his brother.
Yeah.
It seems, Anyway.
Well, and the manhunt.
Yeah, I guess so.
Seth...
So, yeah, but like my mother used to tell me stories about the vampiros. That's something that also, I keep going back to this, I'm a skipping record, but that could have been used in the first half of the movie to set up the vampires and the titty twister a little bit.
Yeah.
You could have had someone telling a story. I don't know exactly. It's so separate. Like, none of the first half carries over into the second half at all. And that's like what is like in the movie and here in this comic.
Right. So, Seth is going to follow Carlos to El Rey, and he turns to Kate once he's in his car and says, "I'm sorry, kiddo," because all of a sudden he just has a car available to him.
Yeah, right. They bring him a car.
It looks like a Porsche. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, kiddo." And she says, "Me too. Want some company?" That's such a hooker line to say. And
that is a hooker line to say. You know what she means there.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think she's into him. I think she's just looking for a way out.
A way out. But no, Seth says...
She just uses her sexual wiles. Like, that seems out of character,
Yeah. Seth says, "Kate, honey, I may be a bastard, but I'm definitely not a fucking bastard. Take care
Classic
of old
line.
darling."
Yeah,
and
I know
he
exactly what he
drives off
means.
into the sunset, leaving Kate
she's
behind.
Standing there. Dude, she turns right around and goes back into that bar and says, like, "Bite me and sign me up." That's what I think.
End credits.
Yeah. Give me a stripper pole. I'll be a stripper vampire. And that's the fate of Kate. I don't know. What's the fate of Kate? Do they ever explore that? I've never seen, any of the sequel movies.
I don't know. I didn't either. Or, I may have seen, like, the second one, maybe?
Yeah.
But direct to VHS back then.
Of course he got a Porsche. Like, he could pick any car he wants. This is a bunch of, like,
what's a
abandoned
Porsche doing
vehicles.
here? I thought this was a trucker biker bar.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he could have his selection of abandoned vehicles now, since all those patrons are dead and they won't be needing them. But yeah, so that's it. That's From Dusk Till Dawn, the comic.
Hot air hangs like a dead man from a white oak tree. People sitting on porches thinking how things used to be. Dark night, it's a dark night. Dark night, it's a dark night.
Yeah, so now that we've gotten through this comic book, let's talk about some of the differences and omissions that we picked up on whilst going through it.
Good idea.
Clearly a lot of these differences happened because they were working off of an early draft of the script, and they had not seen the movie. So those are like the first glaring differences, I'd say.
Yeah. I got that from several interviews inside of the deluxe edition.
That's right.
There's several interviews with their Fred Harper, Richard Clark. They mentioned a lot. It's very good insight.
They had a difficult time, it sounded like, cramming all this stuff into 48 pages.
Yeah.
Especially Polgardi, and he was the one laying out, since he was the scripter, he was kind of laying out the blueprint for
everybody else.
What this book was going to be.
Yeah.
He made cuts. I'm sure they were hard decisions on his part, but he made some choices. Where they were the right choices, I don't know. We'll discuss that a little bit.
Yeah,
but some of the first things you notice are right in the beginning.
Yeah, right from the start. For example, the hostage Gloria in the movie, there is no mention of her, and there was no representation of her in the adaptation.
That's right. Yeah, and that scene, that's some pretty intense stuff in the movie.
Oh yeah.
Like, does it set up the second half at all? Fuck no.
No.
None of it fucking does.
It has nothing to do with it.
It just kind of adds a little flavor to... Well, it really adds flavor to Tarantino's character and how sick he was.
Mm-hmm. Character development.
Mm-hmm. Which, of course, would have made that, like we were saying, it would have made that line, oh, now in death you'll find peace. It would have paid that off a little better.
Right.
I think. But, again, they gotta keep it to 48 pages.
Right. Yeah. Another difference was the character likenesses that they had used. We've touched on that as throughout talking about this comic, but for example, the Harvey Keitel situation, where he's not in his hat and his beard that you do see in the movie, and instead, Fred Harper and Richard Clark talk about trying to avoid using caricatures, but having to use older movies these actors were in as reference.
Yeah, they literally used Reservoir Dogs as a reference.
Yeah.
So that's what you get out of Harvey Keitel.
But like everything else that Harvey Keitel has ever been in, he's clean shaven. Like he's got a look. And in this movie, it's the glasses, the beard, the hat. It kind of reinvents him as a his appearance too.
Which apparently was all his decision.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was the one who, I'm pretty sure he was the one who brought that hat, and he showed up with a beard, and they were like, oh, you got a beard? He was like, yep, I got a fucking beard, and they were like, cool. Okay.
It's Harvey Keitel, what are you going to tell him?
Yeah, exactly. So, dude had top billing at the time, remember?
Yeah.
Top billing, Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's different, but these are things that I can get past.
They're
not a hang up for me.
No, and they're not. They're definitely not a hang up. There are also some other characters that didn't appear at all. Their likenesses didn't appear at all in the adaptation. Cheech Marin, Danny Trejo is another one. Then again, Danny Trejo's got that. He's got the stereotypical, biker bad guy look. With the slick hair, the bare chest.
Kind of generic, you might say.
Yeah. But Cheech Marin's such an awesome actor. Just each one of his characters did have a personality of their own, but none of them had their likeness in the comics. His likeness in the comics, anyway.
No. Yeah, and some some stuff at the end. Like the vampire battles play out a little different in the comics. Like Frost.
Frost was another one that, his story, not just the, like one or two things here and there. I think the entire character's appearance in the adaptation is a lot different than what ended up in the final version of the movie.
Yeah, his whole kind of backstory is removed from the comic.
Oh, yeah.
Which you get a little bit of in the movie.
You do get a little bit of that in the movie.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, was that Fred Williamson's,
addition?
Did he
bring that? Maybe. Again, a lot of this stuff was improvised, and they were just kind of coming up with stuff on the fly. So that's certainly possible. I don't know, though. Yeah, I mean that's about it. And other instances where Tarantino's character was kind of a sicko or dropped, particularly that line where he fantasizes about Kate asking him if he wants to eat her pussy out or something, right?
Yeah.
That scene in the movie.
The one thing that was consistent throughout the movie.
How do you do that? How do you do that in a comic book, though?
Yeah.
How do you get that idea across that it's in his head?
Yeah, that's
whilst you're also tricking the audience,
and
how that happens in the movie,
and still keeping the book in the deadline that it had of 4 weeks.
Right, because it happens in the movie real quick. It's
like
20 seconds, or 10 seconds or something.
Yeah, and there are creative ways to bring that up.
And then he snaps back out of it, and you're like, oh, he just imagined that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose there are. You could do it.
Creative ways, but creativity takes time.
Well, and again, that's not the reason that they decided not to include that. Not because they couldn't realize it in a comic book, but because they thought it was fucking gross.
Yeah.
I think, that's the main reason. They thought it was gross and unneeded.
Yeah. Unnecessary.
Was it? Maybe.
Yeah. The one thing that was consistent in the movie that wasn't in the comic was the looks of the vampires. The special effects were awesome in the movie itself, but none of that carried over because, again, they were working off an early draft of the screenplay.
Yeah, and we talked about that going through the comic. A lot of what they did, not just with actors and costuming, but with special effects, was improvisation. K&B had a whole warehouse full of shit, props and bodies and creatures, and they pulled stuff out just to see if they could use it somewhere, and they crammed it in there just because it looked cool. So you get a crazy variety in the movie of stuff.
They didn't pull any punches.
No, I mean that was their goal in the movie.
They got their toolbox and they used every tool in it.
Every single tool. And the biggest example of that, I'd say, would be that bar band, the local band.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, they have, all of a sudden they've turned into vampires, and they've got these awesome human instruments made out of human body parts, and that's the craziest shit I've ever seen. Not ever, but damn near close.
Yeah.
They couldn't have possibly known that was going to happen in the comic. I think they mention it in the back matter a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that was one of their biggest hang-ups, was fuck, I wish we'd known about that awesome vampire band. Because that would have been so fun to render and put in a comic.
Yeah.
They couldn't have. Yeah. So, things are different. They got to get this on the shelf. But then it leads me to think, do they really have to get it on the shelf, right at the time that the movie comes out? They couldn't have taken one more month?
Time is money.
Okay, fine. But, this movie picked up steam on home video. I don't think the box office numbers were that great.
No. Not even for early 90s standards.
But it really made waves on VHS.
Yeah. Well, that's where I had first seen it.
Yeah, and if this comic had come out, for a VHS release, I don't know, that's what you do, right?
What do you mean, including it in the VHS release?
No, just, timing-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know where they ever got the idea in their heads that it had to come out on the same day as the fucking movie had silver screens. I don't understand that.
Well, at the time, this, again, the 90s, there was a comic shop in every corner. This was a real thing that had been, a part of everyday life back then.
Yeah, they were getting real big.
They were huge, yeah. A little too huge, what we ended up learning later.
Still, that's no excuse as to why they couldn't have taken another month.
Yeah.
And just put it out. This movie came out in like April or something.
Yeah.
Put the comic book out in May, June. That'd be fine. Give some people time to watch it and give them a reason to go buy the comic adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going off of. I think they're going off of old models where pre-home video era. If you didn't catch a movie in the movie theater, you didn't catch the movie. And if you wanted to see that story or even relive the movie that you saw in the theater, the comic adaptation was the second best thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they had those ideas in their head with this adaptation, not realizing that, like, home video is taking over the market by this point, like, hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
I
just my thoughts.
Agree. Yeah.
That could, and nowadays they don't really have to do that. They shouldn't have to do that.
No. Not with social media and everything.
And we're not reliant on a comic adaptation to
sell a movie.
Not to sell a movie, but just to experience a movie.
Yeah.
In the first place.
Yeah.
If it was out of theaters, it was out of theaters, and you're not watching it. So I could see how you'd go pick up, the Marvel Star Wars comics to see the 6-issue adaptation. Yeah. Because you missed Star Wars in the theater in 77, and you had to wait till the re-release in 79 or whatever.
That's completely going to change now, post-COVID, where we're not getting those theatrical releases anymore. So you can watch this in the comfort of your home. If it's for a month or two streaming, but you're still getting it there.
And most of what we get nowadays are more like expansions on stories.
What do you mean?
Like ongoing stories based on
the Blade Runner series, for example.
Yeah, sure. Blade Runner 2019 is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now,
Power Rangers.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, they had to change some things out of necessity. Clearly.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Very interesting, though.
Well, we're nearing the end of this episode, and we're going to get to our final thoughts and ratings, but first, because there was also a video game based on a lot of these movies that we're going to be talking about, we're going to introduce a micro-podcast, Licensed to Game, and our expert gaming correspondent over at Foster's Games Reviews will be playing through all the games licensed by video game developers and based on the titles we discuss here on Movies as Comics. We've watched the movie, we've read the comic, now let's learn a little bit about the game. Here is Licensed to Game.
Licensed to Game with the Foster's Games Reviews. Hello, it's the Foster's Games Reviews with another subpar review of Dusk Till Dawn for the PC. So, From Dusk Till Dawn, the game, is based on the 1996 Robert Rodriguez film with the character Seth Gecko. It takes place on a floating prison barge called the Rising Sun, on which Seth Gecko is being held, pending his execution. Ooh! So within the first 5 minutes of playing the game, the vampires overrun the ship and Gecko is released. Bitten by a vampire, exorcised by a prison priest, and from that point on, it's almost non-stop gun battle against the undead as Seth attempts to escape. So as survival horror games go, this is no different. Going through picking up inane collection of items and manipulating puzzles, it's the basic staple of this game, as to be expected. So From Dusk Till Dawn's main focus is exclusively on combat. In fact, Seth can't even jump, so it eliminates the possibility of even those types of puzzles. So the game basically evolves just around fighting. Yeah. There is a bonus that there's a couple of sub-games within this game. One where there's a mounted Gatling gun, and the other one is sniper mode. A bit like Virtua Cop, the light gun game. Oh, and did I mention that this game also incorporates the classic horror concept of holding up
instead of simply just pressing forward. So it's the good old Resident Evil controls. Tank. We all love good old tank controls, don't we? So unfortunately, the technical aspect of this game just does not live up to its ambitions. So most importantly, movement is simply off. Everything feels sluggish, and it's a little bit floaty, as if Seth Gecko was on helium. So overall summed up in a nutshell, this gets one lovely steak out of 5. Yes, one heart-wrenching steak out of 5. This is the Foster's Games Reviews, signing off.
And now let's get into our rating of this comic, and we're going to call this Bag and Board It or Just Ignore It. It's kind of like a thumbs up, thumbs down thing that we're going to go through for every comic. And, first up on the chopping block is this From Dusk Till Dawn.
Do you think it did the movie justice?
I do. I think that they did everything they could, especially with working from just a script, when this is such a visually charged and driven movie. They got a lot of beats right. And and again, how they that flip we're talking about halfway through the movie, they were able to visually represent that pretty well. Agreed. With these little tricks that they pulled with the panels and stuff like that. They're obviously fans of the movie as well, and the filmmaker's other works, right. And that comes out in the artwork and the writing and the adaptation.
It definitely does. I think they did an awesome job in the artwork. The layouts in particular by Trevor Von Eeden are just, there's something else. The angles that he had chosen for these panels, the way the panels are laid out, it's experience that shows on the page. Now, whether or not I think it's a good standalone comic, that's a different story.
Yeah, like if this movie never existed and they just put out this comic book alone, does this stand up with like other vampire stories that you've read?
No, one of the things that popped out about the vampires themselves in this book was just how inconsistent those drawings were.
Yeah,
you had 4 or 5 different types of vampires, and it just that really stuck out like a sore thumb for me.
With any horror movie or fantasy movie, even maybe, you have to set up rules.
Yeah,
for your world. And yeah, I mean, the movie itself doesn't do a great job with that. They don't have consistent rules. So, of course, that's not going to carry over into the comic book. And I don't think that's a slight on the comic. If a slight at all, I think it's on the movie. But, there certainly are better vampire comics out there.
Yeah.
If that's what you wanted as a vampire comic, right? Mm-hmm. The 30 Days a Night stuff comes to mind.
Yeah. The Topps Dracula adaptation.
Which will be an episode at some point in the future. We're getting to that one. Yeah, that's real well done and rendered by Mike Mignola. Good stuff. And even Ed Polgardi, who wrote this adaptation, has done better vampire comics. In this mini-series he did before From Dusk Till Dawn in the late 80s. It's Malibu graphic comic, and it's called From the Darkness.
Wow.
And it's in the same vein as this From Dusk Till Dawn, so I'm sure that had a little something to do with how he got this adaptation job in the first place. But that's better than this adaptation as far as just vampire comics or horror comics in the same vein. So without the movie being involved, I wouldn't love this quite as much. What do you think overall, Henry? Like, bag it, board it, or just ignore it?
Well, since there were 2 editions of the comic, let's break it down into both editions.
Okay.
The regular edition.
Yeah, that's interesting, because there's a lot more going on with this deluxe edition.
Oh yeah. The regular edition has the comic stories. It has some pinups, and I'd say I would ignore it.
You don't need it.
You don't need it. You don't need it to enjoy the movie. It doesn't enhance it, and it exists. The deluxe edition, on the other hand, had the bonus material for the interviews with the creative team, the extra kind of vampires in movie history type stuff, the prose that are included there. I really like the behind the scenes stuff. Whenever you get to inside a creator's head, I eat that shit up.
That's worth the cover price alone.
Yeah, definitely.
Almost, I'd say. That's worth the cover price, is all that insight.
Yeah, I would definitely bag it and board it, and then I would share that issue with other fans of the movie.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'd have to say you're right, and I hadn't thought about that, like the differences between the
regular and the deluxe
extra features and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you're right, those extra features in the deluxe edition are totally worth it. Like, that was the funnest read I had going through this, I think. And if I can tear the cover off of the original one and paste it to the front of this fucking deluxe edition that has this bullshit cover, I'd put it in a bag with a board, maybe put it on my wall, because it looks, this cover by
Dan Brereton.
Dan Brereton is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right. Otherwise, I agree. Ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
Ignore it. Just go watch the movie.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, where else? I mean, since you're just doing away with this, if you wanted to go read something similar, what are you doing? You want to read a good vampire comic? Where are you going?
Anything with Ben Templesmith. He does a lot of different vampire books. 30 Days of Night was that one that had stuck out.
Yeah.
That was an awesome rendition of vampires. It's dark, it's dirty, it's creepy, claustrophobic.
Yeah, I agree. That's great stuff. It's a benchmark for sure.
Yeah, his take on vampires alone. And imagine somebody like that with that kind of raw art style in a From Dusk Till Dawn adaptation. I think we've been a lot more uniform with the vampires. And I mean, if Ben Templesmith was around at the time and available to do this adaptation, I think it would have been great.
So as it stands, we've got to double ignore it. Except for that back matter, which is good stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Exactly.
So if you're interested in behind-the-scenes stuff, pick up the deluxe edition.
Yeah.
Which, in my experience, just hunting these comics down, there's not going to be too much of a difference in price. If you're looking to buy it on eBay or something, usually these two books
they go for around
relatively the same price point. Yeah. So if you're looking at them, go for the deluxe edition.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, coming up next, everybody, we are watching and reading the comic adaptation of Jaws 2. Make sure you subscribe so you're sure not to miss that. And also, check us out on Instagram. We're at Movies as Comics, where we post, extra little tidbits, and it's sort of a compendium to the show. So see what's going on over there. And we'll talk to you next time.
Peace out.
Later on, everybody. Goodbye for now. And stuff. Bye-bye.
Can you imagine having a better time than you just did? Didn't think so. You're just dying for more, obviously. It's as simple as possible. Search for Movies as Comics in your podcast catcher. If that doesn't work, plug into your interweb browser, all one word, Movies as Comics. You'll get there. You're a crafty, web-savvy person, aren't you? Of course you are. I know you're anxious for more, but you shouldn't have to spend your precious, valuable time refreshing the feed between tremors of anticipation. Subscribe to the show. It'll be delivered to you as soon as there's a new episode. Just sit back and work on your breathing exercises. Not enough to satiate your Movies as Comics appetite? That's understandable. You're a social butterfly and you need to be at the party. It's where the cool kids are. The visual counterpart to the show is over on Instagram. Search the handle at Movies as Comics and come chat it up. Be part of the conversation. Don't be a square. Be around. The hosts need help, in more ways than one really, but what you can do is give them stellar ratings wherever you listen. All the stars, all the thumbs up, all the smiley faces, gold stars, or whatever. They're even happy for and accustomed to pity points. Beggars can't be choosers. Seeing as how you're the perfect picture of popularity, you'll likely have an entourage of friends. Sure you do. Tell them about the show. Hard to fathom, but they'll love you even more for it. Write into the show with opinions, comments, praise, and admiration, or, if anything, at least contact the host and let them know what it's like to have friends. moviesiscomics@gmail.com. With all your important and pertinent interjections, it's imperative that you have a platform for your strident vociferation. Call in and leave a voicemail. 626-246-6627. You can also visit the show's homepage at moviesiscomics.libsyn.com, where you'll find all the episodes along with show notes. Thanks for listening. Listening to Movies as Comics may cause side effects, such as dizziness, dry mouth, temporary blindness, vomiting, diarrhea, knuckle acne, sore hair, bloody noses, swelling of the shoulders, slight temporal time displacement, coughing, loss of memory, tongue discoloration, profuse sweating, finger loss, changes in gravity, upset eyeballs, temporary magnetism, identity crisis, bone evacuation, leprosy, rash, occasional death, head loss, male pregnancy, loss of elbows, bleeding fingernails, depression, drowsiness, extreme nipple chafing, problems urinating, fibromyalgia, constipation, loss of dignity, Plinter's warts, gigantism, spontaneous combustion, excessive hair growth, sweaty palms, scurvy, woogie woogie flu, mumps, intoxication, loose skin, trouble sitting, feelings of loneliness, loss of friends, soiled pants, paranoia, mild vampirism,